pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the September 30th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. We have unanticipated, anything under unanticipated? Board members? No? Mr. Knowlton? No. Mr. Frawley? No. Under announcements and recognitions, anybody have anything under announcements and recognitions? Yes, ma'am?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to announce that the tickets are now available for the 10th Annual Taste of Middleborough, put on by, it's going to be at the Oak Point Ballroom. If you've been to this event in the past, it's lots of fun. You get to test all the restaurants in the area. And it is put on to support the Middleborough Veterans Memorial Park. And you can get tickets at Maria's Card Store downtown, or you can talk to Paul Provencher, the veterans agent. And that number for him is 508-946-2407. And that is on October 16th at the Oak Point Ballroom.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
A couple quick ones. We have a job fair on October 30th, 2013 at Town Hall. It's put on by the Plymouth Career Center and Middleborough on the Move. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's about 35 companies, and if anybody has any questions, they can contact Judy Bigelow Costa at 508-946-0499. I'd just like to say thank you to Selectman Knowlton, Rita Garbutt, the town administrator from Lakeville, John Powderly, a Lakeville Selectman, our representative Keiko Worrell, and Freetown's representative Paul Schmidt, for joining me on a little tour of the Nemasket River on Saturday morning. We put in at Bond Street, we paddled up to the dam at Assawamsett, and then we floated down for the rest of the river, just to get a good idea of what was actually going on with the river and some of the issues that are that the Assawamsett Pond Complex faces as we head into winter and spring, where we've been having some high water in the springtime, and just a good look at the natural and man-made obstructions that are impeding the flow of the water through the river. It was a beautiful morning. I would recommend going out on that river any chance you get, but Saturday was great. There was a little mist rising off the river in the morning. We saw some geese, some swans, some hawks. Way too much seaweed blocking the river, too many man-made obstructions blocking the river, but we had a good time, and I think we all learned quite a bit, and I really appreciate all the local officials coming out and really putting the extra effort into this. So thank you very much, I appreciate it.
That's it?
That's it for me.
Mr. Knowlton?
I just want to remind everyone, October 19 is going to be the next cleanup at the Massasoit State Park. And I've talked about it before, but I just want to remind everyone, come on out. It's going to be a beautiful fall day, and we're going to do even more cleanup in the park. Hope to see you there.
This weekend there was a nice little walk or run, if you so choose, a 5K walk or run for the St. Vincent de Paul Society, for the food bank. A lot of runners, a lot of walkers. Mr. Knowlton, Mr. Frawley, myself were there, and were able to partake, and it was a good time. It was a good way to kick off a morning. It worked out good. A lot of people, hopefully they get a lot of contributions. Certainly can use it. We all think about the needs of the people for the food banks in Thanksgiving, but I've heard that people do have to eat the rest of the year too, so got to remember those folks. Okay, another announcement we have tonight, we will be discussing the draft special town meeting warrant, and we have copies up on the back table next to our esteemed and rather fantastic moderator. And also, although Mr. Frawley thinks these are mine, they're not. We found these, a pair of glasses, so if anybody remembers leaving them here last week, please. And next October 7th, which is next Monday night, we have our special town meeting. So we need everybody to come here and voice your opinion about all the subjects that we'll be discussing. There are a significant number of subjects. We need you there to vote. We need to have 150 people for the meeting. Naturally, we want, a good representation of the 14,000 odd registered voters. We'd like to see more than just 150 people there. Okay. Having no other announcements, we'll go on to the minutes for the 9/23 regular meeting. Jackie, on page 5, the item number 7, where I spoke about the dam situation, in there it says what? It says, how did I lose my place that fast? It only creates flats, it should be mud flats, back from the dam, when we drop the dam down. So it should say only creates mud flats. Okay. Anybody else have any corrections? Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Frawley.
make a motion that we authorize the chairman or his designee to sign the warrants for the week ending 9/27/13.
We have a
Second.
motion and
Second.
a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. We now have, under new business, first is license application for a common victular for Best Pizza, 3 East Grove Street. Didn't we do this last week?
Yeah,
This looks familiar for some reason.
that's not on the agenda. I have the same thing on mine. The wrong date.
Excuse me, we're having a little technical difficulty with the high-tech machinery, so if you'll just bear with me for a moment.
This is new business from last week, yeah.
Yeah, it says 4 days ago. See that? 4 days ago.
You certainly may.
All right. Mine has the same.
All right, in this case, we'll go on to the other item, which I believe is a vote to appoint Carlton.
Excuse me, I could give you the hard copies of that.
The bad old days are
Do you
back.
need this one?
Here we go.
Yep.
We have a letter from the Cultural Council to appoint Carlton Donchis. He's applying for an appointment to the Cultural Council. He's introduced himself to the council at the last meeting, and the council agreed to support his appointment. Is Carlton available tonight?
Mr. Chair?
Pleasure of the board, yes.
I'd like to recuse myself on this, if I may, because I am working on a grant to submit to the Cultural Council at this time.
Well, that would be fine. Thank you. Please note that there's one, you have recused yourself. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to note that Mr. Donchis has provided the board with his resume and a lot of information about the things that he's done in town,
Yes.
which makes it very easy for the board to make a decision. This is an individual who's been a 25-year resident, served on the Historical Commission, and has interests that really would coincide with the Cultural Council.
Very good. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item is to approve a one-day beer and wine liquor license for Mucky's Liquor for 10/16 from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at 200 Oak Point Drive. This is a beer and wine license, the Taste of Middleborough fundraiser for the Middleborough Veterans Memorial Park,
A liquor license as well.
and a liquor license also. It should be all liquor, I would think.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. We now have a vote to approve a one-day all-alcohol beverage license for bartending services of New England for October 5th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Council on Aging.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Vote to approve a second-hand license for Autumn's at 29 Center Street. This will be Autumn's, Laurier Thibault for 29 Center Street. This is going to be wampum jewelry, gifts, handcrafted items, handbags, clothing, consignments, fishing poles. There we go. That ought to get one vote, I think. All right. Any comments or questions? Is Laurie available? Yeah. Oh, come right up, Laurie. Is there anything I'm missing on that, or?
Well,
you got
it's a
everything?
mix of things, but basically, that's what it'll be.
So you're going to be at 29 Center Street.
Yeah,
When do you plan on opening?
I'm not quite sure yet. Maybe in the next couple weeks.
Okay,
We're like working on it, painting and things like that.
all right, okay. And this will be consignments also
Yes.
along with products that you have?
Right, new stuff.
Okay, very good. Comments from the board, questions from the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
I'd like to thank you for your hours till 8 o'clock every night. It's really nice to see businesses starting to try to stay open and keep the town
Right, I
alive
see how everybody
downtown.
closes stores.
I appreciate
People always
that.
saying,
Yeah,
some people get out of work late, so they don't have time to go.
absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so you'll be open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m.
The hours may like fluctuate a little because we haven't completely.
For sure. Okay, pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Do you have a comment or question? or-
Well, I'd like to give you back the iPads and just say, I'm not sure what is going on. We have a new Wi-Fi.
So I'm the only one
Address?
receiving a different signal?
Yes.
You too?
And for some reason, it's loaded the appropriate information for hearings and correspondence. So once we get
Thank
to
you.
new business, we'll be okay.
Okay.
Other than that, I have to talk to IT tomorrow. I don't know why. they did
So
that.
two of us are on the old system and two have the new? You guys both have the new
Mine
items?
seems to
I
be
doubt
working fine.
Like it is?
Mine seems to be okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, that's okay. Oh, I'm going in the shoulder.
Deal with it later. All right, on to vote on bond anticipation note. Now, we have the bond anticipation note. The borrowing is going to be $600,000 for the police station planning, $345,000 for departmental equipment, $215,000 for a forest vehicle for the fire department, $155,000 for elementary school improvements, $115,000 for high school improvements, $70,000 for school department technology, $69,000 for paving, $55,335 for building equipment, compressor and carpeting, $22,848 for town hall annex roof, and $10,000 for the traffic signal at the Four Corners. This is for a total of $1,657,183. Date of this is October 10th, 2013, and it's due, the note will be due, or at least the payments will be due on October 10th, 2014. The results of the telephone bids as of September 26, 2013 were Century Bank for the borrowing amount at 0.45 interest rate. Eastern Bank was 0.60 interest rate. People's United, 0.64 interest rate, and Unibank was 0.65 interest rate. The bid awarded, subject to selectmen approval, would go to Century Bank at the 0.45 interest rate. And the estimated interest would be $7,457.32. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
Question?
Yes, I do have a question. The interest there, is that the annual interest payment? It's not the monthly one, right?
No.
I don't have it in
I
front of
believe
me,
it's
so,
annual. I believe it's
okay.
annual.
Just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
All these items have been voted on previously and been,
Yes.
all right?
These are from the annual town meeting.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure we were all aware of that.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is an extension of time to provide services to North Carver Water District. This is from Dan Murray. He's including a draft amendment. I understand the extension is with respect to the time to provide the mutual aid and meter reading billing services. And the only question I have on this, and we may have to wait till Charlie comes in from the Finance Committee, is this is from December 31st, 12 to December 13, 12. And I don't see how it's extending things other than keeping it going till the end of December. It doesn't make any sense just to extend it for 2 months. It seems that there should be a different time frame on that. So can we hold off on this until Charlie gets back in?
Sure.
Okay. We have a vote to authorize the expenditure of surety monies held to replace and maintain 35 streets at the Tanglewood Estates, Saddleworth Way, Chatterton Way, and Pendleton Court. This money is coming out of the bond that was held to replace trees that have died and have to be replaced. This was discussed at the planning board meeting. So the letter indicates they want to spend $21,250 for this purpose of replacing the 34 trees. And they need our approval to go with it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? None?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Excuse me?
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman? The actual document to sign on the Carver Water Agreement does say to December 31st, 2013, if that helps.
Yeah, but why are we just extending it from last December to this December? I mean, it would seem like we would extend it more than just 2 months. This is 2013. I mean, I would think
Right.
if you're going to extend something, it would be more than just a couple of months. And that's already, if it's already in effect from December of 2012 to 13, we're voting on it now?
Okay. I thought
Seems kinda late.
I thought it was a misprint and said just to the end of 2012. I thought there was something.
No, it says from 2012 to
2013.
December,
Okay.
2013. Just seems
I'm
like
sure
too short.
Charlie has a very good explanation.
Well, I
That'll
would
make
hope that
perfect
he
sense
does.
once we hear it.
Once we hear it. If we get that far. Okay, next. Next item on the agenda is the vote to sign amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Wright Pierce for a comprehensive wastewater management plan. I'm betting we want to hold off on this so we can chat with Charlie over it?
Sure.
Because I think there's a lot of information here we'll have to go over.
We can certainly kill some time going over our goals and objectives, can't we?
Well, I think we could drag Charlie back in here, because we're going to pretty much need him for everything else we've got going on. Because I have questions about the environmental partners agreement. That's, we take a quick recess and see if Charlie can come back in with us?
We could go to our first hearing.
It's not, it is almost, it's past.
Well, I think there's a question on that, too. Or not.
I believe Mr. Murray's here.
Murray's here? Mr. Murray.
It
All
is.
right, let's skip down to the discussion of the 61B recreational land, 68 Purchase Street, Barbara Holton. There was a response sent through, and my question is, did all of the town's questions get answered on this particular response? Mr. Murray, can you answer that question?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. The short answer is no.
Okay. There we go. All right, so there has to be more review done on this?
Yes, the notice of intent that you received, you received about 3 or 4 months ago, 3 months ago, is not the form required by the statute.
Okay. All right. Good enough.
Well, the new notice of intent that I just submitted, did Mr. Murray get a copy of that?
Why don't you grab that mic, Mr. Murray?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if she's referring to a letter from Ralph Holton within the last week or so that was a half a page, yes, I did receive that. That is not a notice of intent, even though it's styled as a notice of intent. Doesn't qualify under the statute as a notice of intent.
Okay. There we have it.
There you have it. Well, seeing that this is a hearing, I want to be heard.
Ms. Holton, it's just a discussion.
It's just a
Well,
discussion.
then I
But
want
you
to
had- You
discuss.
certainly can.
Then I want to discuss. It's quite clear, the property in question here. Stalling the process of the sale of 68 Purchase Street was intentional and deliberate. The original application, filed on 7/24/13, had ample information for a vote to at least look into an article to be placed on town warrant for voters and residents to appropriate money for an appraisal or a study. There are already 2 properties on the warrant, one listed only as Oliver Homestead, no map or lot number. The other, the Lion's Head property, has a map and lot number. Both articles are asking voters to allot money to buy or look into buying. This could have been done here. Instead, the discussion that ensued on this property at the last meeting was, does the town want to buy a town beach? Passing this property off as just a town beach was an attempt to make voters think that that's all this property is. The amenities on this property are immense. Boating, canoeing, picnicking, hiking, camping, just a few of these. With this property, the residents could let their imaginations run wild Everyone from 0 to 100 would benefit from this property. By stalling the discussion of this property, you have essentially let the residents down. By not at least putting something on the warrant to see if the voters were interested, has put the property out of reach. The next special town meeting will not be for more than 120 days, and by that time, the time will have passed for you to assert your option. By again treating us differently from the others in the same or similar situation, you have done the residents of this town a terrible injustice. The removal of a property from 61B to take it out of recreation is simple. For you to make more than that for me and not for others is again unequal. It is always nice for people to donate or give things away. There probably would have been some room here for us to work with the residents, for them to acquire this property, but the expense we have endured over the years trying just to stay in business has taken that away. We have worked here for 30 years. Now it's time to leave. There is nothing in the 61B that says we can't sell this property for whatever we get. The price is the price. We were asking more. This is what we settled on. This town has paid much more for properties that I believe have lesser value, but that's my opinion. If there isn't any money, let it go. Not accepting the notice of intent, which I modeled on others submitted to this town, will not stop the sale. Let's move on. You only have a tax lien here. You don't own the property. Roll back the taxes like it says in the booklet and let the property be sold. In case you are looking into getting an appraisal, I did find a waterfront piece of land in Berkeley, not far from here, that might help as to value of waterfront property. There really is no property exactly like this one, so it will be hard to find something to compare it to. This is the property that I found online, which is a waterfront property, which is selling for $2.4 million. It is not sold. It is more acreage, but it won't get to more house lots than what will be able to be put on our property.
Okay, Mrs. Holden, I've listened to what you had to say.
Right.
The
You have
intent,
listened.
first of all, if my town attorney, which we hire, indicates that the form of the submittal is not in proper fashion, we can't go forward.
There is no form.
Excuse me. The town attorney has indicated that what you've submitted is not in proper fashion. It has to be in the proper format. If it's not in that, we can't go forward, because we would be discriminating against people who do it the right way.
Well, then,
So my suggestion is you contact the town attorney and see what he needs and submit it that way. That's it.
I don't think the town's attorney knows what he needs. This form, and it's not a form, it's a notice of intent to sell.
And it has to be in a proper format.
It is. It's in the same form that the Gibbs property notice of intent was in.
Please don't yell at me. We don't want any more yelling here. We've done enough yelling over the years.
Haven't
We don't need
over
it.
the last 30 years, done a lot of
Okay,
yelling?
thank you. We've listened to what you had to say. My town attorney has indicated that it's not in the proper format that it has to be in.
Well-
And that's it.
And I'm
Until it
sorry,
is, we're
it's
not going to discuss
Well,
it.
it's going to have to go back to
Thank you.
court then.
Go ahead. Okay, fine. Thank you.
You know what? This is absolutely ridiculous.
Thank you.
the town's attorney says. Well, you pull out the notice for the Gibbs property, and the notice of intent for the Gibbs property is exactly the same, in the same form, in the same whatever,
Then you
that
can argue that in court. Thank you.
I did.
Thank you.
Oh, so now we have to go,
Right, it's,
There-
if my town attorney says it's not in the
Okay.
proper format,
Well,
that's what it is. That's what I have to go by.
well,
I'm
there
not an
is a-
attorney myself, so I rely on our town
Okay.
attorney.
And
Thank
there is
you.
another way to do this, Mr. Chairman, and it is also in the 61B booklet. There is another way to do it. It's to take it out, this property has not been used for recreation for a year, this October. So if it hasn't been used for a year as recreation, it is disqualified as recreational property. So maybe I'll do it that way.
Okay.
Then
Thank
I won't even have to offer it to the town.
Thank you. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes?
with regards to this, I was reading the packet, my name is Brian Given, I live on Rocky Meadow Street. I was reading the packet, and I was looking at what this letter or whatever. I was wondering, is there some sort of a purchase and sales agreement that wasn't included in the packet, that was included with the September 23rd letter, which has purchase and sales specifically to only the chapter land, with no regards to any other additional land surrounding it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie, I didn't mean to drag you back out of the...
No, it's all right, we were done.
meeting so quickly, but we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Or I have a couple of questions. One of the items we were going to vote on was the amendment to terminate, the termination/service agreement with Carver. The timing, the dating on this says it's from December 31st, 2012 to December 31st, 2013.
Correct.
So we're voting now in October, something that's going to expire in 2 months?
No, no, this extends it to 2000 from, it really ended last December, 2012. And we really haven't had an agreement for the last 9 months. And this was brought to my attention about a month ago, so I contacted Carver and said, because they were optimistic that they were going to be on their own by end of last December. But it hasn't come to pass. They still rely on us. We still have to go in there, help them with repairs. We still do the billing for them. So so I said to them, I said, well, listen, if you guys aren't ready yet, we need to extend this agreement. How long do you want it extended for? They said, well, we may be ready by the end of the year. I said, okay, let's do it to the end of the year. If you're not ready by the end of the year, we'll have to do another amendment. We don't mind, helping you out, backing you up until you're ready to go on your own. So, that's all it is a continuation of the agreement we've had in place since they've basically taken back their customers.
Well, why wouldn't we just do it for another full year? I mean, we're that close. It's 2 months?
We could, but, this was what they prefer. This is what they propose. I think in a way they may be trying to keep their own feet to the fire to remind themselves that they want to get on their own 2 feet and do this on their own. So I don't think, I don't think they want to make it easy on themselves to be covered for a whole nother year. It's my interpretation.
Can we then make sure that we do another one of these in January?
Yeah, that would be the idea. Now that it's on our radar screen again, we would do it. If they're not ready by December 31st, we'll just do another one at the end of December.
Do any of the board members have any questions relative to this? Motion, I would entertain a motion relative to this.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The next item is the vote to sign amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Wright and Pierce for the comprehensive wastewater management plan.
Yeah. Now, this is this was something that we have been getting ready for because the comprehensive wastewater management plan is what gets us 0% financing. But in order to get the 0% financing, you have to do the CWMP. What I did was I basically said, we have 2 very good engineering firms. There's nothing that says we've got to bid this, so I didn't want to go through another bid. I didn't think we needed another third engineering firm in this process. So I asked both firms to give me their prices and their qualifications, and Wright Pierce, frankly, is the better qualified in this regard. They just brought Leominster through the 0%, and they just got notification. In fact, I just got the press report that Leominster got their 0% financing. So that's why I'm recommending that we just modify their existing agreement with us to do the CWMP as part of that existing agreement.
All right, and they're going to do this in 9 months?
6 to 9 months for $140,000.
Okay. Are we going to have any benchmarks on this so we see how they're progressing, or?
Yeah, I mean, we could just give you a report, on that, every month or so.
Yeah, because I think that there's a lot of money involved. I mean, not just 140, but
Oh, yeah, and the
that's
whole
a lot
thing,
of money
yeah.
too, but,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's a lot of money down the road, too.
Yeah, and I think in fact, we just got the draft permit from the EPA. There's a comment period until the middle of November. So, we have held back in going forward heavy into design until we have that permit in place. It's very close to being in place. So I think, and we're having a meeting tomorrow with both Wright Pierce and Environmental Partners to talk about some modifications to the design that Wright Pierce has discovered and is going to propose to us about how we can, do it, more cheaply and more effectively before we get into full design. So I think once we do that, we'll need to, come before you and the public and give you an update, and probably give you a regular update as we get into design, so that, we're keeping everybody informed of where we are. As we start to spend, a big chunk of money on this design.
Right. Okay. I wouldn't know how to go about benchmarking something like that as to, where we'd want to be notified, but you've been through this before, so.
Yeah, I think, and the other thing that'll happen is we're going to start paying bills. So that, upon the payment of the bills will be an opportunity to talk about where we are too. And that'll become a somewhat regular feature of meetings now as we get into design.
Now, my concern too is, I'm all about doing things as inexpensively as possible, but I don't want to go so cheap that we wind up 10 years from now doing some kind of a fix that if we didn't go that cheap, we wouldn't have had to have done in 10 years,
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
We want to use the money as wisely as
Absolutely.
possible. Okay. So, board members have any questions about this particular agreement? No? Pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes. Ayes have it. Okay, and we also have a vote to authorize the town manager to sign amendment number 1 to the owner's project manager agreement with environmental partners, and that is, what might that be? Want to describe that?
Yeah, and Environmental Partners is our project manager on the same project, and that's a requirement of the law. You have both a designer and an owner's project manager. When we hired them originally, we hired them to do an initial study, and we paid them for that, and that was part of the contract. As we're now getting into design, and then right after that construction, we wanted to have all the costs identified for them as owner's project manager. So, what this lays out is, in phases A and B, which is it takes us through construction documents. We will be paying them about $325,000. 300, yeah. And then the future phases, including construction and post-construction, we're talking about in the $850,000 range. So, we had a we had a lot of back and forth. They made a proposal. We countered, and we came to what I believe is a fair price for their services. So for the time being, we're only adding phases A and B with the understanding that once we get to construction, we'll sign another amendment for the future phases.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you may, definitely.
So this is basically exactly what Mr. McKinnon was just talking about. We're going to be going through this, and we're going to be talking about it as we progress through it, because we're going to be paying the bills.
That's right.
So that's, all right.
That's right. No, we'll, you'll see all the bills, and, we can give an update on what we're doing and, what's progressing as we do that. And from time to time, we'll, at critical junctures, we'll have them come in and give a fuller update. Once we get this design hammered out, that'll be an appropriate time, I think, to come in and just preview it for everybody before we get into it.
We're going to learn a lot about building in the next few years, aren't we?
And certainly a lot about wastewater building.
So many jokes, so little time. So we're talking about the $318,886?
That's correct.
Okay. And this money is coming from?
Coming from wastewater receipts.
Okay. Good. Okay. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Next item is to vote the order of priority of board goals.
Do we want to just wait until
Wanna wait
Ben
till
gets
Ben
here?
shows up?
Because he's supposed to be here. He's just said he would be late. So maybe if we put that on the end, he'll be.
Say he's late. Okay. All right. You want to start with the town meeting warrant articles?
Sure.
You know what
In your packet, you have the,
No, I don't.
No, it is.
Oh, it is?
Hearings are updated, it was just the meetings.
All right. Sorry. Technical glitch that tripped me up.
Me too.
That takes much. All right. Want to start with one?
indeed.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, good evening, Mr. Moderator. How
Oh,
are
good
you?
evening, Mr. Chairman and board members and town manager. I'm here just to listen to the discussion on your hearing on town meeting articles and motions, and to make my semi-annual appeal to the public out there and ask you to remind you that we do have a town meeting next Monday night, 7 o'clock at Middleborough High School. If you're a registered voter in the town of Middleborough, you're welcome. We'd like to see you, and I would remind you that town meeting form of government is probably the purest form of government that there is. And I feel fortunate that we as a town still operate under that. And you as registered voters at a town meeting are actually the legislative body. You folks are the executive body. The voters themselves are the legislative body. So please come out, participate in the business of the town, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Monday night.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Pleasure to have you back in town. There you go. All right, so the first item is for,
Well, let me just do a little overview. In my memo that accompanied the motions and the warrant, I talk about, our free cash certification was $690,000. In the memo, I talk about appropriating $618,000 of that. It's really going to be $670,000. Paul Provencher reminded me that we owe him $50,000 for veterans benefits, which I forgot. So we'll use up just about all of our free cash at this town meeting. The big items are the OPEB trust fund. We started appropriating money toward other post-retirement employee benefits, basically healthcare in retirement. Last year at $200,000, I'm suggesting we do the same this year. I think we have to make that annual commitment in order to show the ratings agencies that we are attempting to do something about that liability. The other big item is our snow and ice budget. We had it at $200,000 last year. It needs to be at least at $200,000, so we're adding $150,000 to that. $177,000 to the capital planning recommendations. You met with the capital planning committee last week, and in addition to that, the Pierce trustees are devoting another $50,000 to one of the articles to help us fund that. And then we have $91,000 in sick leave buybacks also coming from free cash. For the operating budget, we're spending about $150,000 more there. And you'll see that on the second page. In Article 1, which we started talking about, we have several small items. We forgot some of Jackie's pay, so we have to put that into your budget. The chief, who's here tonight, has a couple of retirements, and we need to offset some of his overtime costs until he gets those officers back from or gets some new officers, and gets them trained at the academy. He also has some expenses for, vacation payouts that he's got to cover. The Council on Aging has, had a long-standing need for more food for their day program. They've been stealing from other line items to pay that bill, and it was about time that we helped them out with that. After all, that is a revenue-generating program. Every year we rely on it for our operating budget. A couple years ago, the Blue Cross Blue Shield gave us a $5,000 award for our wellness activities. We never used it, so that money went to free cash. We're proposing a $5,000 item here to fund, a wellness challenge, which we're currently in, just about to begin with our employees to challenge them to, lose weight and exercise and do other healthy things that we believe in the long run will lower our healthcare costs. And then another item is we have been talking with the owner of the Reedy's property about reserving that building. Should we get the approval from town meeting to go ahead with the police station renovation, we need someplace to put the police department, and the chief, who's here tonight, has determined that would be a suitable site for him to relocate. And relocating the entire operation will save us time and money in the overall construction and reconstruction of the police department. So in order to make sure that that space is available next spring, we need to make an agreement with them to hold it, and that's what that $5,000 is for the unclassified. Going on, I mentioned the snow and ice, that's appropriated here. And the other item is we discovered that our trash disposal budget was underfunded for healthcare expenses primarily, and we needed to increase that. So we were close to running a deficit last year. Luckily, we didn't. But in order not to run a deficit this year, we're going to add to that appropriation out of trash disposal receipts. So all that is the motion for Article 1, which I just discussed with the Finance Committee, and we're going to add to that the $50,000 for veterans benefits, and that'll be Article 1.
Okay, any comments or questions on Article 1? Hearing none. Article 2.
Article 2 will be a no-action article, or we'll defer indefinitely article, because there are no unpaid bills.
That's a good one. Article 3.
Article 3 are our sick leave buybacks. We have 4, 1 in police, 2 in fire, and 1 in council on aging. That's $91,442, and that would be coming from free cash.
It seems there were 2 retirements in the police department. There's only 1 sick leave buyback situation?
Did you say 2 retirements?
We had a...
Come on up, Chief. We like to hear your sparkly voice.
We had a retirement last week that they gave me 1 day's notice, so we had anticipated that that person was going to retire in May of 2014, so I just got notified last week, and it was past the deadline to submit.
How much was it, Bruce? Do you remember how much his buyback is? It wasn't a big one, right?
No, it was around 8,000.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah.
Something that can wait till the spring.
Yeah, we can wait till the spring for that.
Sure. No, there'll be no problem with the unions or anything. I mean,
I think we can wait till
No,
the
I think
spring.
we'll be fine. Yeah.
all right. So it's $91,000, $442. And if I get this right in English, $91,442 for sick leave buybacks coming out of free cash.
Right.
Comments or questions? Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Going to Article 4, which we're going to indefinitely postpone.
Right, there's no funds to, unfortunately, place into the stabilization fund this year.
We'll go to Article 5.
Article 5 is the funding for the OPEB Benefits Liability Trust Fund in the amount of $200,000.
Okay, any comments or questions on Article 5? Hearing none? No? Okay. Article 6.
Article 6 is our funding of collective bargaining agreements, so we only have one to fund at this meeting, which is the fire contract, which we reached agreement on in just about town meeting time last spring, and the amount is $54,706. The basic parameters of the agreement, which is in the background that I've given you, is that it's a 2% cost of living increase, small increase in clothing allowance and schooling pay. In return, we get a 70-30 split on health care for new employees. You know, it's an agreement in keeping with the other agreements we've already signed this round.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the audience? No? One question. We talked a lot about insurance. This is September 30th. On October 1st, theoretically, there is a new level of insurance from the federal government. How will Obamacare, or would it health medical?
The Affordable Health Care Act.
Well, all right, the Affordable Health Care Act. How will that impact the town? Have you thought?
Right now, we have some notification requirements. In fact, we just had to do a notification prior to October 1st, letting people know about some of the options out there. You know, there are, you know, potentially some issues that could present themselves. I mean, right now, obviously, most employer plans are far more generous than anything you can get on any kind of exchange. There are some issues related to people whose income is, or whose premiums are more than a certain percentage of their income that could have some issues as relates to our plans, but, you know, not likely more than a few people, because I think you'd have to be making a relatively small amount of money for that to take effect. So it's nothing, but then, you know, things change over time, and you know, we'll have to just keep our eye on some of those potential issues for us, but nothing immediate, I don't think.
All right. No other questions on Article 6? Okay, Article 7.
Article 7 is our appropriation for healthcare cost reimbursements for our retirees in Medicare plans. When we made the health plan change 2 years ago, we agreed to a certain amount of reimbursements for employees and retirees, and basically we agreed to share 25% of our first year savings with them. But because of the way the Medicare plans run on a calendar year basis, those savings crossed 2 fiscal years. So we appropriated $48,336 in FY13, and this is the amount we have to appropriate in FY14. And basically what they get is they get a reduction in their Medex premiums every month, you know, out of these funds, because they don't have very much in the way of copays to speak of in those plans. So that's how we agreed to it, and this is our part of the deal for that last round of savings.
The agreement with the retirees.
Right, with your employees and retirees, but this is specifically for the retirees.
Okay. Comments or questions on Article 7? Audience? No? Okay. Article 8.
Article 8 is the first of the several capital planning articles. You talked and discussed these with capital planning, I believe, last week.
Right.
These are for the firearms for the police department, $16,742. It's a net amount. The chief is trading in the existing firearms and getting a substantial amount back for them.
And this $16,742 plus the weapons that we're trading in will get complete weapons, holsters, magazines. Okay.
Correct.
I think they're getting the ammo, too.
You are? Okay. Yes, you are. He is. Good deal. Any comments or questions on Article 8? Comments from the audience? Article 9?
Article 9 is the special needs vehicle, the 20 to 30 passenger special needs school bus. This one, although the article talks about a wheelchair lift, this does not come with a wheelchair lift. It's a regular bus. I think there was a mistake made last week. This is a $90,000 vehicle, not a $50,000 vehicle. So just to be clear.
Will this motion have to be adjusted at the town meeting?
Well, you know what I did.
Because it does call for a wheelchair vehicle?
Yeah, you'll notice in the motion that there's nothing that says anything about a wheelchair in the motion. So
really?
Yeah.
Well, I see wheelchair.
That's in the article, but in the bold script is the motion that you will read, and it should say motion, and I just haven't finished it yet, but it specifically does not say wheelchair.
Well, I'm concerned that we're going to have a little question about that, because the article is written one way, but the motion...
Yeah, but it's the motion that controls the vote. And remember, you can, as Dan will tell you, you can't add things to an article, but you can take things out of an article. So by taking wheelchair out, and I think Mark and I discussed a little while ago where we make smaller changes like that, we can point those out to people, so they know exactly what we're doing.
That's the key right there. Just tell the people that you've taken it out, it's not part of it, and the motion doesn't reflect it. So it's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on Article 9?
Yes, I have a question.
Well, go ahead.
Why was the wheelchair lift no longer included? Was it something that was not
It was
necessary?
a typo from day one. It wasn't part of the original request.
Okay.
You know what happens sometimes with oftentimes they have them with wheelchair lifts, so I took an article and it had the same language, and I didn't discover until we had a meeting with them that it didn't include it.
Okay, so they're not asking for one?
No, they didn't ask for it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it was just a mistake in drafting of the article.
Thank you.
So cut and paste didn't work well that time.
Cut and paste didn't work well that time.
All right, any other comments or questions from the audience on Article 9? Article 10.
Article 10, we're going to postpone. We met with the school administration, talked about the walkway and whether or not we needed to stabilize or do any shoring up of the bridge structure, and we decided that for the time being it wasn't necessary. So we're just recommending we postpone that.
Okay. Article 11.
And Article 11 is our appropriation for town IT. A lot of this will be going to the police department to upgrade their computers and various other departments. And the actual request was for $120,000, but the Pierce trustees graciously are funding $50,000 of that, so it becomes $70,263.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Charlie, do you know if we're buying iPads for the high school students with this article?
This is only town IT, but we did fund the school IT in the spring, and I can certainly ask Ellen and see if that's on there.
Somebody had asked me if we were, because there was a recent article about some high school students in LA who, oddly enough, figured out how to pirate their iPads. And someone in town asked me if, with Article 11, we were purchasing iPads. I didn't think we were. I remember going over this with the capital planning committee, and I didn't think that was the case.
Yeah,
so I told them that I would talk to you about it, and we'd clear it up.
Yeah,
So,
this is only town IT purchases.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on Article 11? Los Angeles, they just seem to drive a lot of crazy
You
stuff.
give a kid an iPad, he's gonna figure out how to do things on it
Oh,
that
yeah.
you'll never imagine.
Oh, that's right.
You give my 3-year-old my phone, she can play any game she wants on it,
They're a lot smarter than we are.
and she can put it in the toilet as well.
That's right. Okay, any other comments from the audience on Article 11? Okay, Article 12.
Article 12, we're going to postpone indefinitely. This was the article last year where we were able to fund some former capital projects funded out of borrowing, and we were able to just pay for them out of free cash. Obviously, we don't have the resources to do that this year.
Okay. And Article 13?
Article 13, we've been funding our stormwater activity that we're required to do under our NIFTY's permit, but we determined that there was enough money in the last year's appropriation to carry us through at least until the spring, so we're not going to have to appropriate anything right now.
Article 14?
Article 14 is to add to the article we approve every spring to appropriate money to repay our loans to the state for our septic replacement program, and that amount has increased this year, so we needed to add $14,787 to the $109,000, I believe, that we appropriated in the spring.
Are we in a place where we can increase that, instead of just borrowing $200,000 a year for that?
Yeah, that's going to be our plan from now on, is we're going to, rather than, because there's a cost of borrowing every time you do an issuance, so Judy McDonald, our treasurer, is suggesting that we borrow more, less frequently, because it'll, we just won't, it won't cost us as much, and I think that makes good sense.
Especially this time, the economic time we're in, we can borrow at a very inexpensive time.
Correct.
And get more of our septic systems repaired.
Correct.
And that revolves, that pays, basically that pays
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. This is coming out of the money we've collected from people who've paid back their loans. So no cost to the general fund.
That's not coming out of our, what you normally consider your town money.
Yeah, no impact to the operating budget at all.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on Article 14? Any comments from the crowd on Article 14? Okay. Article 15.
Article 15 is, and we've talked about this, this is an article that we borrowed $10 million to do water repairs 11 years ago. And we still have money sitting in the bank that we haven't spent. So what we've been doing recently is, as we've had more critical projects that need to be done, we're adding them to this article so that we can use up that money, because it's money that's just sitting around and not, benefiting the ratepayers. So we're trying to use that money up as quickly as possible.
Now, I see Sachem Street is on this list.
Correct.
Is that, Sachem Street is one of our long streets.
Right.
Is that which section is that? Is that from East Main?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't know the exact location of the work they're going to do.
If we did replace, say we did work in that particular section from East Main up to Wood, would they resurface that road too?
Usually these projects are done with the idea that you're going to come back and resurface the road. That you want to get the utility work done first before you spend money resurfacing the road. I don't know if that's the case here.
Okay.
But I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on Article 15 from the board? Any comments from the audience? Questions? None? Okay. Article 16.
Article 16 is the beginning of our CPA articles coming out of the Community Preservation Fund. Again, you, I believe, met with them last week. So my understanding from them is that some of these amounts may change, not in large part, but, in a small part. Maybe Jane wants to comment, or maybe one article. You want to comment, Jane?
Mr. Chairman.
Good evening,
Jane Lopes, Community Preservation Committee. The first article before you is the one about museum buildings.
Yes.
The HVAC system, which we have a solid number on, and the windows, which we don't. So that article, that number may change. We're trying to pin down an estimate because initially the museum board was talking about vinyl-clad windows, and we recommended wood windows to be historically appropriate, and also because they're in line for state grant money if they go with the wooden windows, but we don't have a number, a good estimate on that yet. The other number that was a rough estimate is now, is the $15,000 for the study on the Oliver estate, and that looks like that's a pretty good number. That's the number we're going with at this point.
So Article 16 would be, you're going to stick temporarily with $91,050. Might change a little, but may stay that too.
Right.
Okay. And that could enable you to get some grant money involved too. Right. Comments or questions of the board? From the audience? Okay. Article 17, that's the $68,509 for the vital records preservation from the Community Preservation Committee. Any comments or questions on that? Any questions from the audience? Okay. Article 18, we just talked about, this is the $15,000 from the Historic Resources Reserve by the Community Preservation Committee for estimating the estate of the Oliver homestead located on Plymouth Street at the Nemasket. And this is relative to a possible conservation, historic restriction and conservation restriction. Comments from the board? Questions? Comments from the audience? Questions? Okay. Article 19, to see if the town vote to appropriate $156,600 from the open space reserve for the Lion's Head property. We discussed this last week too. Any comments or questions from the board? Comments or questions from the audience? Am I doing something wrong? There's no question.
Nobody's yelling at you. I wouldn't ask that question.
Okay. Article 20, see if the town will vote $435,000 according to the Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, 8C, for purpose of purchasing the conservation and passive recreation purposes for a gift. This is Lion's Head also.
This one and the next one. There are 3 articles in a row all related to Lion's Head. They all do slightly different things.
Right.
We have to appropriate the entire amount, but that appropriation is contingent on Wildlands Trust and land grant funding, so that even though we're appropriating the entire amount, this will not go forward unless we have those other funds to offset it.
Okay. So that is Article 20. Any comments or questions on Article 20? Any comments or questions from the audience on Article 20? No? Article 21, see if the town, this is also the Lion's Head property? No, yes,
Yep, it is,
Lion's
yep.
Head, this is $156,600 for the purpose of purchasing the property, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Any comments from the board? Questions? Any comments from the audience? Questions?
Again, this funding also contingent upon, everything's contingent upon getting these other sources of funds.
Right. Okay. Article 23 is the zoning bylaw concerning the
22.
22. Thank you. Concerning the medical marijuana facility, or dispensary, I should say, this would be proposed by the zoning board, or planning board rather, to put the facility in the general use area zone rather, as a commercial uses. And the Zoning Board of Appeals would be the authority behind it. We've also asked for an amendment to put it also into the GUX zone, which includes the area from Route 495 south down Route 28 to the Rochester line. That encompasses a larger area also that they could build this facility should it come to the town. Any comments or questions from the board? From the audience? Okay. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to accept Mass General Law 59, Section 5L. This is relative to the National Guard members that are on overseas duty, being able to
Defer their taxes.
Defer their taxes.
Yeah,
That's
basically.
a big word.
Yeah.
I get stuck in a multi-syllable word, sorry. Defer their taxes for 180 days. Any comments or questions? Any comments from the audience? Okay. Article 24.
This is a modification to our sewer use regulations relating only to ocean spray, and this was mandated by the EPA. We've shared that with Ocean Spray. Ocean Spray approves the changes. They don't have any problems with it. So it's a very technical modification of a very long regulation that...
That's Article 25, isn't it?
No, that's Article 24.
But there's only a...
Right, because every time we've done this, and we've done this a couple of times now, we've always referenced the bylaw being on file with the town clerk, which it is, because again, it's a very lengthy and technical, and again, it only affects one facility in town. It doesn't affect the general public.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay, Article 25. This is the discharge to the municipal storm drainage system. This is also required by...
Also required by the EPA, and you know, to put this in a nutshell, what it requires us to do, if we detect pollution getting into our stormwater system, we have to trace it back to the source and stop it. And this gives us the regulatory ability to do that. And that's all we're interested in doing. We know that there are a lot of places in town that have high groundwater, and we're not interested in, being the sump pump police. All we're interested in is making sure that what gets into the waterway system is not contaminated.
And we have done a lot of work on this.
We have.
To pare down.
And soften.
To make it more viable, I guess would be a term to use.
Less onerous.
Yeah.
Less onerous, and just make it clear to people that, we're just doing what has to be done, and we're not going to take it into, extreme areas or directions.
Right. And we didn't want to make a bylaw that would come back to bite us.
Correct.
So that's what this does. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay. Skipping right along to Article 28.
26.
That's what I said, 26.
Page 14.
14.
Bottom of 14.
Yes, the Wetland Protection Bylaw. This is a non-zoning wetlands bylaw, very comprehensive. Have all of there were 40-odd legal questions proposed from our town attorney to the Conservation Commission last time when this particular bylaw came before us. Have all of those questions been answered and all of those answers been incorporated into this bylaw?
No, Dan's still here. Dan, have you had any further conversation with the Conservation Commission members about this bylaw after your comments?
Yes.
Step right up to the microphone, Dan.
The bylaw that you have before you is not the bylaw that was submitted or thought to be submitted at the annual meeting. This is a new bylaw.
They've changed it around
The format is changed.
to incorporate your...
A number of changes, yes.
Now,
And-
so do you agree that all of the changes that you requested to be made in the last bylaw were either adapted in this or didn't have to be adapted in this because of the wording in this bylaw?
Yes.
All right. Questions of the board?
Who's going to read it?
You are, now that you've asked, because of that elderly comment you hit me with earlier. It's payback. Any other questions from the audience? Step right up, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my purpose of appearing before you tonight is to try to get you to withdraw your support for this bylaw. Fundamentally, I don't believe there's any need at all for it. We have the state wetlands bylaw that's worked extremely well for a very long time. Any decision of our local Concom that's disputed is reviewed by DEP, who fundamentally know what the bylaw is and are the experts on all of this stuff. They work with it all the time. Number two, we have the Water Resource Protection District bylaw, which protects municipal and private water supplies in the town by having various zones of protection, some more stringent than another, particularly the ones involving municipal water supply. We also added a 25-foot no-touch zone to that bylaw the last time that, or one of the last times that this home rule bylaw thing came up, because that was their major concern at that time, was that there were intrusions into the 25-foot buffer area that they felt were bad, and so we gave them that. Thirdly, there's a Natural Heritage Commission, a state commission, which has designated all Middleborough lands as box turtle habitat, which puts an extreme disadvantage on folks trying to develop land or use their land in Middleborough. And my feeling is that this is more than enough in terms of curtailing people's property rights and stopping them from using their land. Now, this proposed bylaw is a so-called home rule bylaw, which is misleading in that we never had control of this. It was always the state. So we're not getting anything back. We'd just be getting something we never had. Number one, it goes beyond the State Wetlands Act, including vernal pools and all kind of rules relative to vernal pools that were very recently turned down by the town meeting. Number two, fees can be charged for consultants, engineers, etc., and fines up to $300 a day can be levied based on the subjective judgments of the Conservation Commission members, as is laid out in the bylaw that's in this for the town meeting. It's very, very broad, extremely subjective. Uses terms like you have to convince us that these things don't apply, or we're going to insist that you pay for all of these studies, et cetera, et cetera. This alone would get a lot of people to think long and hard about going before the commission. The commission can write its own regulations, although it hasn't chosen to do so at this point, and they can be far in excess of what is in the state wetlands bylaw. And the DEP would no longer be the arbiter of disputed decisions. Any challenges to the commission's dictates would go to state superior court and be adjudicated perhaps by a judge who doesn't have a clue about the state wetlands bylaw. Now, these are the intended consequences, a little more expanded, that they actually are touting. The Concom can now make subjective rulings on things that go beyond the state bylaw, like contiguous wildlife areas, vernal pools, etc. They can hire experts at applicants' expense to study anything they deem significant. These fees will not be impacting out-of-town developers. They will be impacting town residents. Anybody who wants to do anything on their land where it's deemed that this is something that should come before the Conservation Commission will be in this predicament of having all these costs levied on them. Regulations, as yet unwritten, could bring people before this commission for any number of things not now under the purview of the Conservation Commission. Any aggrieved applicants who gets this far can go to court where a judge unacquainted with wetlands issues will preside. No more DEP. And 5, it will slow down and limit growth to what the Concom perceives to be in the collective interest of the town. And I emphasize the word collective. Now, this bylaw has been based on the town of Maynard's bylaw, and we were told that the town of Maynard has no problem with their bylaw. Well, some things about the town of Maynard that we all should know. Number 1, it's next to Concord and Wellesley. Number 2, it has a $75,000 average income. Number 3, it has a population less than half of Middleborough, 10,433, on an area of 5.4 square miles, 1,928 people per square mile. And 1/4 of the town is a natural wildlife refuge and a pond. Clearly, this is a wealthy town that is fully built out. So the application of the stringent bylaw that they took from Maynard to that town wouldn't begin to have the impact that it would have on Middleborough. In comparison, Middleborough is not next to Concord. It has a low average income. It has a population of 22,000, an area of 70 square miles, or 315 people per square mile, about 1/10 or less what they have in Maynard. It also is 45% wetlands spread throughout the town. So all of the wetland issues would affect many, many more parcels of land than they would in the town of Maynard. For instance, buffers, if they were expanded, could dramatically impact the amount of buildable land in the town. The unintended consequences of this bylaw that I see are that it would further erode people's property rights, even more than they are now with all these other rules. Because of lack of predictability and very high potential costs, it would drive the little guy completely out of land investment. In other words, for years and years and years, one of the ways out of poverty were for people to acquire land and use that land in many ways. Woodcutters would buy woodlots and cut it off, and then they'd keep the land. Some of them became very wealthy men. And the real value was in land. And it's actually the ability to own and use land that took us out of the dark ages and created the modern era. It unleashed the creativity of people and the work ethic that we all respect today. So any attempt to curtail that has to be looked on long and hard as far as where that's going to take us. It also would create favorites with the Concom, those wealthier folks who can convince the Concom and see them on a regular basis that their projects are good, true, and beautiful. It would also recreate the hostile environment towards out-of-towners investing in Middleborough as a business or development, as a development location, as was the case in the 1980s. Now, in the 1980s, late 1980s, we had a major problem with our local conservation commission, which in my opinion was totally out of control. At one point, there was such a fight that 3 selectmen were recalled over one of the issues. There were lawsuits going back and forth between the Concom and other town agencies. It was, in truth, a disaster. A lot of it was over the South Point location on Route 44. But one thing is sure, that with this bylaw in place, we'll have slower growth or no growth. And that fosters that no-growth mentality that was so prevalent in the 80s. In conclusion, some of the proponents of this bylaw probably have good intentions, but using Maynard's bylaw, which is a town completely unlike Middleborough, refusing to hold a timely public hearing so that residents would have a chance to comment prior to the coming town meeting, and not writing the regulations up front, because undoubtedly they know that we won't like them, points to something else. What it points to is a need to control that's incompatible with private ownership of land. And I truly believe this. I think people are basically good. If not, you couldn't govern them. And the need to always govern them more, the need to be terrified that somebody's going to do something horrible is a real problem for government. And we all tend to fall into this when we take part and become government officials. We believe that we've got our finger in the dike, and that should we take it out, the whole thing will come crashing down. We need to trust more. Sure, there'll be occasionally some rogue individual who will do something gross, but it won't amount to as much as we're going to lose if we take away people's property rights. Finally, I would like to see these attempts at foisting this type of control on the town stop here by defeating this bylaw once and for all, and not keep bringing this thing forward every couple of years until we're worn down by it. We certainly have rejected this, made clear how we feel about it. We've rejected the additional controls on vernal pools, and this is a very, very dangerous bylaw if the town accepts it. So I thank you, and I would like to see you withdraw your support, but you have to decide what you're going to do. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions on this particular bylaw from the board? Anybody want to make any kind of motions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think Neil has made some excellent points. I have the same concerns about private ownership of land and having to go to yet another layer of bureaucracy when you want to do any changes. It seems like this is not necessary. It's been voted down in the past. I'd like to make a motion to withdraw our support for Article 26.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, any other comments or questions relative to the support of this article?
I have a question for Mr. Knowlton and Mr. Quell. What information have you guys received that has changed your mind since when we voted in favor of this?
For me personally, it's been talking to other individuals in town.
Yeah. More and more people. You know, the number one question I get from this is, what hole was this plugging? You know, normally when you need to improve something or you need to increase government regulations because there's holes. And, you know, they kind of made, you know, where was it that we were lacking? Where was the abuse to the environment? You know, we seem to be very conscientious of our environment as a Commonwealth, to be quite honest with you, and as a town. And I really just didn't have a lot of good answers for them. And it just seemed like we're putting layer upon layer of regulation where we just didn't seem to have this, you know, this massive need or concern. Again, I'm not saying that the intent on this has any problems, but I really did have a lot of problems when I was, you know, talking to especially homeowners, taxpayers like myself. They come, you know, they come at me with a lot of "don't tread on me" type mentality. And, you know, when I don't have a lot of good answers for them, then I have to start rethinking how, you know, where I was on this. Again, I'm not looking to strike this down so much, but certainly I think we can take another harder look at it. I know when it came to other articles we're putting on the warrant, there was a time window that we were going after. I don't see that necessary here. So would my colleagues on the board be opposed to, you know, delaying our support for this? If it can't get on this meeting, it can get on the next one.
Mr. Chair?
Any other comments? Yes?
We already gave our support to this article. The next meeting we have is going to be town meeting. I don't really see how you can delay revoking your support just to have another discussion at town meeting.
We have a motion on the floor. We can vote on that motion.
I was just addressing Mr. Quell's last statement.
Okay. All right.
So our response to that is we should get this on town meeting, this time at town meeting as opposed to another one. Why?
I thought you asked why, if we could postpone our support for this article till another meeting. The next meeting's town meeting.
Well, no,
town meeting.
or another town meeting, right. I mean, like I say, articles have been postponed to another town meeting. You know,
That would be a motion you would make at town meeting.
You can make
If
a
you
motion.
want to, if you,
all we're doing
if
is
you want
making
to
a
postpone the
motion.
article,
Correct.
then you would make that motion at town meeting to postpone this article indefinitely. That's a motion you can make, anyone can make at town meeting.
Okay.
But we've already, without getting into debating the pros or cons of this article, I'm just we voted to support this. I'm wondering why at the 9th hour, or the 11th hour, I'm sorry, we would change our vote. And, well, Mr. Rosenthal certainly makes a compelling argument. If we were going to have a debate on it, I'd like to have both sides here.
Well, it's the first hour, 9th hour, whatever hour. I think more importantly, get it right. So I'm not too concerned with what hour it is, Alan. I'm interested in getting it right. And if postponing our support or withdrawing our support in order to postpone it is what we need to do, I don't see where the...
Again, if that's your thought process, that's fine with me. I don't care. I just didn't understand it. That's why I was asking the question.
Okay. Asked and answered.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
I'd just like to say again, Mr. Rosenthal does make a compelling argument, but I think if we are going to have a debate on the topic, then both sides should be present.
Okay.
I mean, I do have some questions, and I'll speak to people who are both in favor and against this article. But I certainly don't think it's a good idea to vote in support of something and then at the meeting before town meeting, withdraw the support without both parties here. I think that sets a bad precedent.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think it's okay to change your mind. I think it's okay once more information comes to light, once more conversation occurs, it's okay to change your mind. I don't think we should be locked into a vote of support that
I
we
don't
took.
disagree, but a conversation generally involves two sides.
Unfortunately, we have a meeting next week.
And the meeting we're having now, the question we're addressing right now is whether or not to remove our support for this article.
Correct.
We haven't had a conversation about the merits of this article. What we've heard is one side.
Right.
Again,
We
I'm not
already heard one side.
I'm not debating the merits of the argument.
Right.
I'm debating that there isn't an argument.
Okay. Is there anybody from the Conservation Commission here that wishes to speak to this? Okay. So
Mr.
there's
Chair.
nobody from Conservation here to speak to their article, which we're going to have an open meeting on to discuss tonight, so, yes.
I agree with Selectman Frawley that we should have both sides, but I think in order to do that at this late time, we would have to postpone this article in order to get the Conservation Commission in here.
But where it's already on the warrant, we have to make that, again, like, as Mr. Frawley has said, we have to make that motion at town meeting. But we certainly could withdraw our support for the article based on newer information. We already had the Conservation Commission in here originally to discuss this, to go over the merits of this article. We've had another conversation from a town member of the town who gave this, and other people have discussed things with other board members. And this is a comprehensive article to be reviewing. There are things that I don't like about it, but we have one person who wishes to speak.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Brian Giovanoni, and I like local control. I like the idea of having local control and having our Conservation Commission who knows our community have that control here. I've seen what the state can and cannot do and refuse to do sometimes. I see what other communities have. There are some 250 or 60 out of 351 communities that have adopted a local bylaw like this. I support a bylaw like this. Would I like a little more information? Yeah, but I think that as much as I'd like to see those regulations before we vote on them, is there a little bit of trust we have to have with our people that are representing us? And some people say, I trust nobody. well, I think that we need to put something together, and if we have to, we'll pull back the reins in 6 months from now at another town meeting and revoke the bylaw if we have to. If we don't like what they're doing, we still have control at town meeting to do something. This was on the town meeting, I think either previous or two previous that we attended, and they've cleaned it up. They've answered a lot of questions. My two questions are, what are the exact rules that you're going to put through, and what are the fees you're going to charge? But I have to say, I have to trust some people. I do have to give some trust to these people. If we don't trust anyone, then we might as well not even be here. But I think that we can trust our conservation people, members of our Conservation Commission, and I'm going to vote for this. Neil's going to kill me, but I just want to say that maybe someone will, I'll speak as one resident in support of it. I'd like a little bit more information, and I'm sure it's going to come quickly. I don't know if I want to back burner this anymore. We've been back burnering it for too long, I think. Thank you.
There was Neil mentioned the proportion of land that we have in this town that is wetlands already. I know I have wetlands on both sides of my house. And according to Section 2 for the jurisdiction, I can't do anything within 100 feet of the wetlands, which puts that right in the middle of, in fact, it covers all of my property. So I couldn't cut a tree down in my yard without Conservation Commission approval, but I have to pay my real estate taxes,
So if you had to go, Mr. Chairman, for determination of applicability, and knowing full well that that might cost you an undetermined amount of money, because God knows who you might have to pay for them to hire. And by the way, the only way you can dispute what they're paying that individual is by questioning their qualifications before your board. You can't dispute the amount of money, so you're just up for grabs. Now, if that doesn't discourage people from doing the right thing, going before the commission, I don't know what does. And again, fundamentally, I mean, it's fine to trust government, but ultimately, if people weren't basically good, they couldn't be governed. And I just think that too much control and too many regulations stifle opportunity. We keep talking in this country about the lack of opportunity. Well, the lack of opportunity is very much tied to freedom, the freedom to do what you want with your own property and all this type of thing. And I'm going to tell you something. In Massachusetts, we don't have the kind of freedom to do much with our property. And it's getting worse and worse all the time. And I know that a lot of the town officials are well-intentioned. Hell, I was one, and I used to wonder if I could trust myself.
We know we can't.
To be honest with you, right. So,
that's why you're not here.
That's exactly right. I did enough of it. And frankly, if you stay too long, that could be a problem.
That's right.
Why
did you look at me when you said that?
Oh, I don't feel that way about you. But I felt that I should come before this board out of respect, and I do. I have great respect for this board. I know you took that position, and I didn't want to sandbag you at town meeting coming up with something, so I figured I'd come here and say what I thought, and then you could do whatever you think. If some of you want to vote against it, at least it won't be a unanimous vote for this thing, and I just don't see any real reason to have this. I think that the unintended consequences of this are dramatic and potentially devastating for the economic development of this town. And I'm one of these people who don't believe that Middleborough, being as large as it is, can really survive that well if it doesn't grow. I don't think that we have enough folks here and enough of a tax base to adequately support this town. This is the reason that some people voted to have a casino years ago, because it would have increased the tax base dramatically. But when you've got 200 miles of roads and everything else that goes with a town of this size, the second largest town in the state of Massachusetts, and largely undeveloped, I mean, what you want is quality development, but you certainly want development. And, you know, if you don't think you're going to get it because you can't use the land, either because a turtle might be there or because of some other weird notion that people have, well, I just think that's a bad thing. So that's why I came before you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions relative to this article?
Mr.
We
Chair,
have a motion. Yes?
You can cut down a tree in your yard if you'd like to. You just have to ask the Conservation Commission.
Right. Right.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion? I know the Conservation Commission has worked hard to try and get this bylaw to a place where they could bring it to town meeting. And I guess what I was just, rather than take any kind of vote to postpone indefinitely and prevent a debate and discussion, that whatever you do tonight, you let the article go before the voters at town meeting and see where it stands. Because I don't think it would be fair for the Concom. Last spring, we encouraged them to pull the article because it wasn't ready and there were a lot of unanswered questions. They've gone back, redrafted, tried to bring a better form. They did run it by council. They did address his concerns. So I think they're entitled to a vote and a debate on the town meeting floor. You guys may support it, you may not support it, you may be split on it, but I would suggest do whatever you do in such a way that you let them have their time before town meeting.
Our present motion is not to table it. Our present motion is just to, we had supported it, to reverse that, just to say we don't support the article.
Correct.
That doesn't mean we're indefinitely postponing it or anything. There was no motion for that.
Good.
Okay. Yes.
It just as a point of order, can we rescind a vote without satisfying, or what are the things we have to satisfy? There's a certain way we rescind a vote.
Yes, by making a motion. You can rescind a vote of
We need to
support by
have,
making a motion.
actually, one of the requirements is you have to have new information.
We have new information.
Actually, all that information was available to us, nothing new.
It wasn't presented that
I mean,
night.
this is a point of order question. It's not a
Okay.
debate on the merits again of the argument. This is a technical question on whether or not this board is allowed to rescind a vote of support. That's what I'm asking. You seem to think we can?
I seem to think we
Then-
can.
If only our town council was here.
What?
Why wouldn't you ask our town council if he's sitting in the second row?
Ask him, he's right there.
Mr. Murray, what are the procedures for the Board of Selectmen to rescind a vote?
Mr. Moderator, I think the procedure would be a motion such as has been submitted.
And that's it?
If it passes, then
All right,
it's effective.
thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Having a motion on the floor. And the motion is just to revoke support of the article as our previous motion was several weeks ago, to support the article. All those in favor of revoking support of the article?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a split vote. Chair votes yes to revoke support of the article. Going on to
Article 27.
Yeah. We'll get there, though. Here we go. This is to see if the town will vote Veronica Lane as a town way as laid out by the Board of Selectmen and as authorized by the Selectmen to acquire by eminent domain by gift fee, and on and on and on.
And the selectmen voted several weeks ago to lay out Veronica Lane
Right.
and to support this. So.
Yep. There's $58,000 in borrowing, and that's going to be repaid by the...
By veterans,
By
by
the
the
veterans.
residents.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to accept Tall Oak Drive as a town way, as we voted several weeks back to approve this, and this, there's no money involved.
No, the work was already done.
Work's
Work
already
is
done.
done, completed, and accepted.
Any comments or questions from the board? Comments from the audience? Okay. Article 29, to see if the town will vote to accept Donna Drive as a town way as laid out by the Board of Selectmen. We voted on this several weeks back, and there is no work on this? No money involved in this, rather?
No money, this is also complete.
This is all complete, okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Comments or questions from the audience? Okay. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to transfer the care, custody, maintenance, control of a certain real estate northerly side of Wareham Street. This is the Thomas Park down at the dam on Wareham Street.
Yeah, and I read your discussion at your last meeting, and I made the motion to transfer it to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Just because I know that there was some feeling that, you know, maybe the Park Commission wasn't ready to take it. We've been, you know, since we have some volunteer help, it's really no problem for us to accept it and to make sure it's maintained. The DPW goes over there usually once a year after the winter, does a major cleanup, and we have a retired volunteer who takes care of it the rest of the time.
Okay. So the Board of Selectmen would be the controlling authority for the park. Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Comments or questions from the audience? Okay. Article 31. This is to authorize the Municipal Light Board to gift on behalf of the town the transmission of gas and electric service in private ways off North Street known as Pierce Lane and Westman Ave. Comments or questions from the board? Yes.
Hi there, I'm Jeff Stevens, and I live on Weston Avenue. And candidly, my biggest surprise is I've heard absolutely nothing about this until I see it as an article for town meeting tonight in review. What are the implications of having the gas and electric have easements at this point? These streets already have both electricity and gas available. What is potentially going to be the difference?
I think they're
Does anybody
replacing
know?
the mains, aren't they? Aren't they replacing those old gas mains?
You know, I wasn't here for that discussion last week, so I am a little
I think
at a loss.
they're replacing a cast iron gas main, and they wanted to come down. Are you going to address this?
We do have a commissioner here who might be able to help us here.
There you go.
Hi there. Glenn Montefiore, one of the board members on the G&E. We're replacing out the pipes. The pipes are gotten old. They're in need of repair. We're putting in a new pipe to upgrade it due to the age of the original pipe.
You're not doing Valley, you're doing work on Valley Road. You're sure we've got the right location, because it's Valley Road that just had all that done. And Pierce Lane and Weston have not had anything done yet.
And this is the request, to have work done now.
Request high.
The G&E to upgrade the services, upgrade the piping, because it's old. And that's all. That's all there is to it. And get permission before the town prior to doing any work, and then proceed forward. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
While this may or may not involve the town or the gas and electric with this, both Pierce Lane and Weston Avenue are private lanes. The land is actually owned by the Pierce trustees, is my understanding. And with that, does the work done by the gas and electric also intend to bring those back to the basic condition they're in, which we actually just, at the expense of those of us who live on it, just resurfaced Weston Avenue, and now I'm hearing that we're about to do something on Western Avenue.
I don't have that answer.
Okay.
I don't think in past that the G&E repaves the road. That falls to the town to repave the road, is my understanding.
See, that's the thing, it's a private way.
Yep. So
But
I can't answer.
usually a utility will repair the trench.
Correct.
But, you know, it won't do a whole new surface. We'll find out, Jeff, we'll let you know. How's that?
Okay, any other comments or questions on Article 31? Board members? No? Audience? No? Okay. Article 32? This is where we're going to vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept the conveyance of the town from the Plymouth County Commissioners of a portion of Taunton Avenue County Highway layout, which is to be discontinued and which contains a cross located on the island part of the layout, and to accept the conveyance for the town from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts of a portion of the state highway layout for Route 28 which is to be discontinued, such portion being located adjacent to the aforesaid portion of the county highway layout to be discontinued as a town way, the said portion of the state highway layout to be effective when the Commonwealth discontinues that portion of a state highway, transfers the care, custody, maintenance, and control of the said portion of the county and state highway. This is the cross land. This is a huge tract of what, 17,000 acres is? No, it's probably about, what, 85 square, it's got
Yeah, I think it's 20 by 16.
more words
if I'm not
than this
mistaken.
has square
Yes.
feet, but, and all that's to do is to work towards eliminating.
Yeah, the idea is that with the help of the state and the county, we can turn this small square of land over to a private entity who could maintain it and take it out of public ownership, and therefore end the potential dispute that could occur because of the cross being on public land.
Any comments or questions? Comments? No comments, questions? Any comments from the audience?
Yes, Jeff Stevens again from Western Avenue. This clearly has surfaced several times, and has surfaced in many cases from the media bringing up this issue, and it has surfaced again. The Boston Globe and Globe South had what I would call a major article on Thursday involving what the headline called "Vote-Neers on the uproar over the cross." I don't know if it's an uproar or not. There was then today a letter to the editor about the same issue, and that's headed, "In Middleborough, it's everybody's cross to bear." So we're clearly in the news over this issue. Selectman Frawley is quoted as commenting on the amount of time and money that this action has taken up. I know that in many ways this may seem like a small issue. There are some significant parts to it. I am significantly concerned about the time and potential cost to the town if you have this action go forward, candidly. I know there have been concerns about it now, and I think some of the actions that have taken place because you've been concerned about it if it was indeed on town property. And candidly, I would have thought you'd have been relieved to find out it wasn't on town property, that it was an issue for the Commonwealth and for Plymouth County. Seeing in the article in the Globe an issue that I was kind of unaware of, and I was quite aware of the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment, which is the one that separates church and state issues. I was surprised to hear that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has an article that I believe is Article 18 in part of the Massachusetts Constitution, which is called the Massachusetts Anti-Aid Amendment, part of the Constitution of the Commonwealth, which clearly puts some responsibilities on all levels of government around any form of support for anything that is considered a religious undertaking, when that is very broadly defined. And it clearly prohibits both funding and activities that relate to anything involving religious undertakings that are connected in any way to communities. My concern is that when I checked to get some further information on that aspect of the Commonwealth's Constitution, I did speak to the attorney for the Massachusetts ACLU. Has there been contact between the ACLU and the town officially? Not that you've been aware of?
No.
Because the article in the Globe indicated there had been communication back and forth between officials.
Well, if it's from the Globe, it must be true.
No, I'm not suggesting it is. I was asking you, because I have my doubts too. I hadn't heard of anything.
Town manager just said no.
Well, and I fully will accept that. That's perfectly fine. The ACLU is aware of this issue very clearly, and they have a lawyer who is following this and is interested in both the discussions that take place tonight and then in town meeting actions. I did call her up and ask her a little bit about this, to get a little clarification about what the Massachusetts Constitution had to do with this. She raises an issue that is a significant one, and it has to do with the concept of maintaining a religious message. And that aspect is what these actions are tending to do. Okay, you have a 12-foot Christian symbol within about 10 feet of a state highway with a message that I believe I would interpret as a religious message, worship, and we have that on public property. Now, I always thought it was Middleborough's public property. I understand now that it belongs to Plymouth County and Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm asking the selectmen, why do you want to get involved with this issue at this point? Why accept this? Why go forward with this action in front of the town that then puts Middleborough back into this issue?
Well, I think, first of all, it's one of those little absurdities that we have to deal with when we get a complaint.
Yeah.
We've had a complaint from somebody who was driving through the town, and they saw it. And
happened to be a lawyer.
Stirred his angst.
Yeah.
No, I was looking at that, and I heard the cross had been up there for 50 years. And I thought, gee, that's a long time, 50 years. And I started doing some thinking about that, and I figured there's probably 5,000 cars a day go by that. So you do a little math. You got 5,000 cars a day, 365 days a year, times 50 years. Yeah, it's around 29 million views, roughly. We've had one complaint. Just happened to be from an attorney. My first reaction, got Steve McKinnon, 867 Plymouth Street. I must step out of my role here for a moment before Charlie has a heart attack, is to just tell this guy, why don't you just stay on 495? You don't like it? 495, you can go down Route 44, you can go up 18, you can go many different places. But we have an issue, we have to deal with it before it becomes a lawsuit. So we have a vehicle. Mr. Frawley, did some good thinking on this. He came up with a good idea, and now we can resolve the issue. But you brought up the state constitution that says that we can't support, as a town, any kind of religious activities?
That's what the Massachusetts Anti-Aid Amendment states.
So I guess we have to...
Mr. Chair,
yes?
Mr. Chair, I would ask you not to go down that road before you do.
So you know the road I'm going.
If I may.
I would know the road I'm going.
I do, and I would respectfully ask you not to. Let's deal with one thing at a time.
The grown adult in me
please do not.
will defer to my vice chair.
I'm quite sure I know where you might be heading, and I'll be glad to discuss that with you at another time.
We're not going to.
That's fine with me. I'll be glad to discuss that too. And,
we will.
You can take this up with the state legislature on those issues as well. Back to the one that we're dealing with. I ask you as a Board of Selectmen, and
because we've had a complaint, that's why we had to deal with it.
On further research, isn't it clear that complaint was to the wrong agency, and that you do not have control of that land?
But
this action prepares you to be in control of that land.
We are the stewards of our property in our town.
It's not your property.
No.
Okay. Yeah, but the issue is that this board permitted that to be there. So to turn around and say, well, it's really not our land, it's not our problem, is a little disingenuous.
It happened a long time ago, so we're cleaning up the mess.
Did you folks, not as you folks, but did the selectmen of the town of Middleborough approve the placement of that structure on that land?
Yes.
And they did that back in the late 50s.
Right.
And at that point, was it town property, or was it state
No,
property.
it probably wasn't town property. It's
So
never
it
been
was
town
perhaps an
property.
illegal action in the first place.
So we're just
Very
correcting
likely.
a problem that happened in the past.
My point is that it's not your piece of property. Now, the other thing is you're about to take on a step that does bring it to you and does give you that property. And with that, I'm concerned about the reality that you may very well be opening this town to civil action by the ACLU or private citizens that right now you don't have as an issue. And I'm concerned about opening that option up as one that then happens on a couple of levels. First, under the constitutional pieces of it, I don't think that's something you want to lightly take on. Secondly, I think it's a continuing traffic hazard. It's been a wonderful thing. It has sat there for all of this time and nobody's hit it. But if it were me owning that, I'd worry about somebody hitting it and that I might be charged with maintaining a public
It's got
nuisance.
29 million views and it hasn't been hit yet.
You only have this happen at one time.
Yes.
But that's another issue, just a side issue. I'm sorry, Mr. Frawley, go ahead.
The article you referenced me being quoted in, what did I say about the time and the money we've spent on this? I don't think we've expended any funds on this.
That was the quote in the, again, this is written by a news person, may or may not be accurate how it was stated.
It's pretty accurate as far as what I said. We were contacted by a lawyer saying that they were going to sue us if we didn't do something about transferring, in my mind, in my interpretation, a historic brick structure off of state property or off of our property. Through our research, we found out that it wasn't actually owned by the town of Middleborough. But the way I see what we're doing right now is we're going to accept the transfer of property from the state which has no problem transferring that property to us for exactly this intent.
Might I
They know exactly what we plan on doing, and they don't have a problem with it. The county commissioners hopefully will act the same way. We're going to transfer this property to the care, custody, and control of the Kiwanis, and they're going to maintain their historic brick structure as it has been since the day it was built, and we're not going to worry about it anymore. That's just the way I see it. That's it. That's
You're welcome to
exactly
see it
my
that
mindset.
way. I've heard it referred to as a historic. Candidly, I'm older than that structure is by considerable. I don't want to consider myself historic at this point, but we won't get into the definition of historic necessarily. I don't think there's any way that any of us can dodge the reality that that is a religious symbol, and a significant one, with a significant religious message on it as well. And it's right now on public property. We can debate about whose it is or whose it isn't. I'd suggest that Middleborough might well do better to not get involved in taking it on as one.
We can't not get involved in it. We've already been involved in it. We've been dragged kicking and screaming into this. We didn't choose this.
I didn't suggest that you did.
So we have it on our plate, we have to deal with it. We just can't say.
Do you
"Oh,
complicate
not us."
issues? I ask you this question, and perhaps I might through you ask town council, do you complicate your position by actually taking ownership of this for whatever time?
Do you really
Because right
think?
now, you do not have ownership
Do you
of
really
this,
think
town
that
Middle-
the ACLU is going to step in the minute we take this land, knowing that there's a process involved, that
They
there's
may
an
very
end to
They
this?
may very well, because it suggests to
If
you
they,
that
if
the
that's
lawyer for
all
the
they've got to worry
ACLU...
about, you know what? I'm not even going to worry about that. We've got a vehicle to take care of this issue. It's going to go away. Everybody's happy.
I suggest to you that you may very well be creating more complications for you than you are solutions. And I'm
See?
telling you that the ACLU lawyer sees the same complications.
Well, that's great
Now,
for her.
That may well
I'm
be. It
glad.
may not be. I'm no lawyer. I'm just raising
Why
it as an
doesn't
issue.
she do something about the drug problem we got on our town? Do something useful instead of sitting up here sniping, you know?
Sir, I hope we can stay civil about this.
I am being civil.
It seems we're going to different departments. I'm asking this town to seriously consider an issue that I think is based in the Constitution of both the United States and of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I'm trying to keep this community out of what I potentially see as even greater fiscal and legal complications than you're presently in right now, in that I think you're not in ownership of that land or of that piece of material that's on it. So with that, I would encourage us to not become part of that, and would ask you to think about that as you go into it. And I'm asking you, as you take this position to the town, to consider that, and have you considered that?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I appreciate your concern. I appreciate your arguments. We've spoken about this. We, in my mind, we've come to a very reasonable conclusion to this whole process. I'm very comfortable moving forward. I'm not going to worry about who may or may not sue us as a town, because anybody can sue us for any reason that they want. So, and one thing that I always remember when I'm threatened with being sued is that every time two lawyers meet in a courtroom, one of them's wrong. So I'm not, again, we can be sued for any reason. I think we've come to a reasonable conclusion with this process. I think legally we'll be fine. If someone wants to sue us for it, they're gonna sue us anyway. So that's that, and I'm just telling you, like I said, I appreciate your point of view. I appreciate your arguments. I don't share them. I've expressed how I feel, and you know what the great thing about all this is it's up to town meeting. It's not this board's decision in any way, shape, or form.
I would suggest to you that this action might well be more appropriately tabled while you further explore some of these legal issues, because I believe there are substantial legal issues here that the town may face if you become the owners of that structure on that piece of property, and that it is better left in the hands of the Commonwealth and of Plymouth County. If you do take that on, it's fine, but I would encourage you to get further legal clarification on those matters, because I think they are potentially complicating for the town, and I'd ask you to seriously think about tabling this action rather than taking it on right now. Now, I'd like to really speak to the community and not to you as selectmen, because it's not a selectmen's issue. All right, I won't.
You can do that Monday night. You'll
Which
have
I
your,
will
you'll
do.
have your choice Monday night.
Which I
You can
will
do
do.
that. You've already made your discussion about this. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
thank you for taking this on. As a citizen of the community, I want to thank you all for taking this on and moving this forward. We've been stuck in this limbo for quite a while, number one. Number two, there is a history of us doing things that may have a religious tie to it. In fact, there is even appropriations of money recently that we have done in this community to fund certain things. And I will have to say that I even question the legality of that to the Constitution, but you know what? I voted for it anyway because I think that certain things are appropriate, and sometimes we just have to do them, because you know what? We're a community, and this is what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any? Oh, yes.
Just a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Did you explore the option of having that land go right to the Kiwanis without the town taking ownership?
I don't think that can happen.
It can't happen.
Yeah.
Not from the state anyway, and probably not from the county either.
Okay, Article, every time I touch this screen, things happen.
23? I mean,
Okay.
33.
33, page 25.
Somebody? 25, oh, there we go. Article 33, see if the town will vote to appropriate $210,000 from the proceeds of the surety pursuant to the subdivision control law, MGL Chapter 41, Section 81U, for the subdivision known as Fernway Estates, which is in default of completion and to be made available to the planning board for expenditure to meet the cost and expenses for completing the work as specified in the approved subdivision.
This is a road completion issue. The planning board needs town meeting approval to spend, I believe, over $100,000 from surety. And they've got $210,000 they need to make improvements to this particular roadway.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? No? Comments from the audience? Questions? Okay. Article 34.
And this is the amendment to the intermunicipal agreement with Lakeville to allow one more customer on Bridge Street to be served by the town of Middleborough for water.
Is that a single-family house? Is it?
Single-family house, that's right.
Any comments or questions? Comments from the board, from the audience, rather? No? Okay. Then, that is the special town meeting warrant. Next item, Board of Health hearing. relative to an ordinance to ban synthetic marijuana or similar cannabinoids. What? What?
I haven't seen that word before.
What?
Cannabimetics.
Okay. We're being recorded for posterity here, so. Anybody,
Open the hearing?
yes. Hearing is now open. So, if I can ever find it. One of the things we have is a copy of the Board of Health rules concerning synthetic marijuana or similar substances from the town of North Attleboro. Does anybody want to address this? Gene, do you want to talk about this?
What I did for the board since our last meeting was I went through the state, made some contacts where I could, and modified some of the existing ordinances out there and/or Board of Health regulations, and made up drafts for this board to take a look at. One is fairly comprehensive. That would be the North Attleboro one. There are some, I did modify it somewhat. The other one is a little more simplistic. It's more in line with the one I gave you the first evening. That has also been modified as a Board of Health regulation. It is a little, probably a little more easily implementable and enforceable. So either one of those, if the board had time to look at them, and both of these have been sent to the town council.
You say two, and I only see one here. I only see the North Attleboro article. Didn't we? Oh, is this, okay, that was the, all right, that was what you sent through last week, all right.
Which one did you say you preferred, Gene?
The one that I modified and gave you the first week, I think is a little more simplistic and a little, at this time. And granted, I did not have a lot of time to throw these together for you. I tried to put something together as quickly as possible. I have not heard comment back from the MAHB attorney, staff attorney for health boards. She's the one that forwarded the North Attleboro one to me, but I have not had comment back as yet, because I did ask some questions of her. The other one was modified. I also pulled up a lot of ordinances, and like I indicated to the board, I really feel that this type of issue is more appropriate under a bylaw in the town, which would be passed at a town meeting or something. But this would be appropriate, you know, if you wanted to get something in sooner, you could pass it as Board of Health regulation until such time as you passed a bylaw.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I've been talking to quite a few people about this. Turns out we have an expert in our own Middleborough Police Department regarding this. She works a midnight shift, but she gave me a call, and Detective Baptista, and she actually helped draft the state law in Rhode Island, and she's been extremely helpful. The first draft you gave us was based on an existing bylaw in which town?
It was based upon an ordinance that was passed in Attleboro, I think.
And
there was about 4 ordinances that I pulled up that one was Taunton, I'm sorry, one was Taunton.
Yeah, one was Taunton. And this one,
There's
the one
a
that's in
Fall
front of
River
us right
one.
now is based on North Attleboro.
Mhm.
But you like the one from Attleboro better? Or you find it to be more appropriate, I should say?
This first one, I think, was modified off the Taunton ordinance.
So the two-page item was modified off Taunton?
Yeah, I'd have to look, because I've looked at an awful lot of ordinances in the last 2 weeks.
This is the one we have in our,
That's the North Attleboro
this
one.
is North Attleboro, which is
Correct.
very comprehensive.
It is,
It lists a lot more chemistry
absolutely,
than does this.
yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't jump.
And I have
no,
to
that's
tell you
fine.
that giving, those will change depending upon when it was formulated, when that ordinance or regulation was put together and passed, because those products change. As one gets wiped out, they modify and make another one.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's the problem here, is that this is...
The product I was looking
it's
at,
a-
I think, was the second or third generation. They even say that, second, third generation, right on the package. So you know you're getting...
Yes. And that's why I thought it was very important to have the police department involved in looking at this issue, too.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
seeing that we do have Chief Gates here, I have some questions for him concerning this.
I'm going to give you all a copy of the general law, just in case you haven't heard it.
Thank you.
This 270, Section 18, it gives us some enforcement authority for using some of these things, these potpourri and herbal incense as they're sold as, that go by the names of Scooby Snacks, Mind Trip, Happy Days, AK-47. This law here, looking at it, we've used it. One of the detectives actually used this probably 2-3 weeks ago. He arrested a kid down at Wareham Street, right near the Four Corners, for sniffing keyboard cleaner, the aerosol off it. He was getting high off it, so he got arrested for that and got charged under this public health law. But just so you're aware that, I'm not sure how you're going to write. I haven't read the regulations from Attleboro, North Attleboro, and these other places for these potpourri and herbal incense. But we've encountered a lot of things over the years that we've arrested people for under the statute. Keyboard cleaner, propane, aerosol, whipped cream cans, spray paint, glass cleaner, glue, things of that nature. There's a lot of stuff out there that people with low cognitive skills would choose. The big problem is you can't legislate common sense. You can, I'm certainly not opposed to, if you want to go forward with a local bylaw banning these things, but I think ultimately the goal should be to do this statewide. I know Rhode Island did it because I had Sergeant Batista call you, Mr. Frawley, after I spoke with you. I know they did it out in Indiana and Florida recently. I think that would be probably the best thing to do overall. Like I said, I'm not opposed to doing this locally if you can get it done quicker and you think it will help. But this is essentially unethical business practices. That's what it is. By packaging these products in appealing packages. And they appeal to these people with low cognitive skills. But when you open the package up, the potpourri incense, it looks like marijuana. And they spray it with different stuff, and I guess some people smoke it and they get high off it. But I think under this law here, we could arrest them. I researched this. There isn't any case law on it because it's a small misdemeanor. think it carries a 6-month prison sentence, but that'd probably be, you'd have to be arrested 10 times for it, for that, but, so there is no real case law, it hasn't been challenged a lot. The only thing I read the first sentence, and it says, substance releasing toxic vapors. You know, I really don't know how they can sell potpourri and herbal incense if it's toxic, but I'm not a chemist and I don't write the laws. But ultimately, I think the best thing for everyone is the state get their head together and do something like they did in Rhode Island or Florida.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr.
Just for information, the Senate does have a bill pending right now, 919, to address this exact issue, so it is in the process of going forward. My research on this, it notes that Northampton and Westfield have been criminally charging shop owners since January of 2012 with this exact law for this exact purpose, without a bylaw. And like you, I'm not against, conceptually a bylaw, but if this law, Chapter 70, Section 18, gives you the authority to do this already, and it's being done in other towns, I'm happy with that.
Just a second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's all well and good. I mean, if they were marketing it and said this stuff is for human consumption, or you take this out and smoke it, I think then you got an issue. But if somebody puts a product there that's legal, and we go in and arrest them, I think you...
Well, wouldn't that be the same thing with the aerosol cleaners for your computer keyboard?
Well, that's what
That's
I'm
a
saying.
legal product, use it in an illegal fashion.
Whipped cream,
Yeah.
take them off the shelves, walk around, and they sniff the aerosol, get high, and leave the whipped cream behind and walk out the door.
Yeah, but how do you prosecute the merchant who sells that? You
Well, that's
can't.
what I'm
I
saying.
think that's what Bruce is saying. You can't prosecute the merchants with this very easily because they're saying, hey, it's just incense.
Apparently it's happening in Westfield and
Maybe they had
Northampton.
unethical merchants, and I'm not saying the ones that are selling this stuff are having good business practices, but I haven't seen it, and I've gone around a lot, and I've taken photos of them, and they're just sitting there, they're not marketing it and saying, take this out and get high with it. I mean, if that was the case, you got a whole different ballgame, way different ballgame. What happened out there, I don't know.
Okay.
But I do like to go by, pretty much stay within the bounds of the law and not invent something that ain't there.
Okay, Alana, you had something?
Not to be redundant, but this law is only for using it, not selling it. That's what you're saying.
No, it's selling.
No,
It's for selling it as well?
It's for selling it.
Okay,
But like I just said, how do you, are we gonna go around to
Determine.
all the pharmacies that sell incense and potpourri, or go down to, I know we don't have a lot of shopping in Middleborough, but we go down to Ocean State down there and arrest them for selling potpourri? I don't think so. I really don't. I'm not gonna.
to that end, then, if I could address, Jean, you said does the Taunton, the initial papers that you sent us, the initial guidelines to ban this, does it cover any chemical compound? Do you think it does as well as the Attleboro one? And it's something we could adopt right away?
It does list some of the products in it, in one of the paragraphs further down.
That would be D, prohibited activities. This regulation shall apply regardless of whether the synthetic marijuana or synthetic marijuana analog is described as tobacco, herbs, incense, spice, bath salts, plant food, or any blend thereof, and regardless of whether the substance is marketed for the purpose of being smoked or ingested, and regardless of whether the substance is marked for not for human consumption. Is that the...
And I think this is the really tough part that we're facing here. We're talking about specific chemical compounds that are being applied to these products that give you this intoxication or euphoria or the THC levels on a different product, and they're synthetic. This is the products have been around for a while. I mean, this is something new. It's just the marketing is new and it's getting out there and everybody's understanding now how, you know, it's no longer underground, it's on the shelves.
Do you feel that the Taunton regulations are broad enough so that we could use them to include, or?
Can I make a suggestion? You know, I think we're all trying to get something done that will work here, but you know, I don't think we've all had a chance to sit down together and discuss it and figure out what might work best. And since we do have somebody who's got a little experience on the police department, maybe tap into her knowledge base and expertise and try and come back with something that, you know, we have a couple of different models here, you know, at this point to be able to tell you what the best is the best and what's going to work best for us. I don't think any of us really know. We've been, you know, all trying to play catch up in a very short period of time. So I think if you give us a little bit more time to sit down and work on it, we'll be able to come back and give you a reasoned recommendation.
All right, so there's also two laws down in Rhode Island I was sent. I didn't get the copies of the laws yet. I'll get them, and I'll forward them on to the board. The Rhode Island had a problem with something called Arctic ice, which is synthetic marijuana, and they banned it. And it was pulled from the state because of the product. So I have those laws were just sent to me, or the numbers were sent to me today, so I will get those out to everybody. Plus we have a state law that might mimic one of these Rhode Island laws. And plus we have some regulations. There's a lot of information there for us to digest, and none of us being attorneys are kind of in a, it makes it a little more difficult when you're reading these laws. It's not, the laws aren't simple. There's all these complexities in there. So maybe we want to review all these pieces, sending all this stuff to you also, because you have nothing else to do all day. So for review, and maybe you can involve the chief or one of his designees to see if we can come up with something that's workable, viable.
If that's what the board wishes, certainly will.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Ford.
I have no qualms at all about moving forward on a state level. I think that's exactly what we should be doing. In the meantime, I think it's incumbent upon us to get a local bylaw passed as soon as possible. As far as the existence of an existing law, maybe it works, but I'll tell you what, it doesn't work right now because I can go down the street and buy something. So as far as I'm concerned, this law isn't applicable because it's not being applied. That's just as simple as it is for me, as far as the existing law. It doesn't work because it's not working. We're not going to come up with a perfect law to ban everything that's ever going to come up in front of us in the next few years, because criminals are better at this than we are. But if we can ban the stuff that's on our shelves now and get in front of it now, then why don't we? I think.
What are you going to say?
I would make a motion that we adopt either one of the regulations. The one modified from Taunton, I like the one from North Attleboro myself. I read through it and it seems to cover everything in my book. If Gene's okay with that, then I don't see why we wouldn't move forward with that now. If we need to amend it or to rescind it and pass another one later, let's do it. If we need to do this as a Board of Health ordinance right now and pass a bylaw in the spring, then we can do that as well. But why would we sit here and debate something while people can still walk down the street and buy this stuff that one thing we can all agree on is that this is bad news. We can all agree on that. There's not a person in here who says that this is a good idea. Smoking this crap is a good idea. We all know that the people who are manufacturing this stuff are circumventing the law to pass this poison on at a very reasonable price to our underage children. If we have an opportunity to do something, I say we do it.
None of these have even been reviewed by council. I mean, and to the extent that they have, Dan has some serious objections about them. So So the idea that we would just go ahead and vote something that we haven't run by our town council just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think we've got to take, hit the pause button, spend a little bit more time, and come back with something that, will work.
Well, if we're working off existing laws that have been passed by surrounding communities, I think we have a step, certainly a step in the right direction.
It's a starting point.
We could certainly make a motion contingent upon approval by town council.
Never thought of, adopting a bylaw that way. I mean, I think you got to adopt the bylaw as it's written. Or it's not a bylaw, it's an ordinance, but nonetheless.
Well, yeah, and that's a clarification too. This isn't a bylaw. This would be a regulation, Board of Health regulation.
Board of Health regulation that we could easily amend or rescind.
Yes. You can do it at any posted meeting.
But again, you don't want to adopt something, get it out to your, the community, and then change it. That's no way to proceed, really.
I certainly understand that school of thought.
Why don't we submit this North Attleboro proposal, their Board of Health regulation, if you would, to town council for review? He can bring that back the week after next, because we'll be at town meeting next week. We'll bring this back the 14th, and if there's any revisions that he sees that we have to make in it, then we can review it then. I mean, we're talking 2 weeks. I mean, I can't legislate. We can't legislate good behavior on people. It just doesn't work that way.
I understand that.
And there's only, 2 or 3 places in town that are selling this? I mean, I've talked to several businesses.
2 or 3 too many.
Well, that's true, but the point is, we shouldn't rush a regulation through because there's a couple of people that are involved in this. I think we should, it's important that we react to this faster than things normally happen in town government, where it takes forever, but it's important that we do it the right way so that we don't wind up getting sued for some kind of a discrimination problem, marketing problem, who knows what kind of problem that some other attorney's going to come out of the woodwork on. And not that I'm worried about being sued, but I don't think there's a big piece of the population that's affected by this. So we can get a letter out to these few places that are marketing this and saying, you better make sure that you aren't selling this to anybody underage, because we'll pull the rest of your permits.
How could we possibly regulate the age if it's potpourri?
It says it's not to be sold for minors.
Where?
Right on the package. I don't have the package
On the
in front of me.
potpourri?
Yeah. On the Scooby snacks.
How does
it says, right?
Why is a pot? I haven't looked at the package. But
Well, I've bought a package of it. Why do you think
nowadays
I'm so crazy?
You old enough?
Doesn't this explain everything, folks? I bought a package of it the other day, and it says you can't give this to minors.
I would be more
Can't
than
be
happy
sold
to
to
meet
minors.
with Attorney Murray and Mr. Costello and anybody from the police department, so that we could maybe bang out something in the next, for your next meeting. And then perhaps at the time I can even try and finalize the draft on the medical marijuana regulation we also discussed, and bring them both back at the same time.
Could we discuss this at our meeting on October 7th before the town meeting? I'd much rather do it then than wait a whole nother week.
This isn't the kind of thing you want to discuss in a 20-minute quick meeting we're going to have before a town
I'd
meeting.
rather just pass it myself.
I know you'd rather pass it. We'd rather pass it right, though. It's got to be done right. If it's done wrong, we're working off. We're protecting a very small.
We're working off successful blueprints.
We don't know that they're successful.
From 2 different towns that have passed it already.
Have these been passed? These
North
not draft?
Attleboro, no, North Attleboro has not been passed, but Taunton has.
How successful are they? We don't know.
It's not sold in Taunton, in the town of Taunton, I can tell you that.
Look, I want to make sure it's right. I want to make sure it's
All
done
right, the
right.
Taunton one is correct. We just covered that.
May not be correct for us. Okay?
No, it's not okay, to tell you the truth.
All right. I think we should.
I don't see why. We
We
drag our feet on so many things. This should not be one of them. We should move as fast as possible on this.
Why? We should
Because
move
people
efficiently.
they're going to the hospital. There are 4 cases in the past year of people going to the hospital in our ambulance that we're paying for that are directly attributed to synthetic marijuana. 4 cases in the past 12 months. That's 4 too many in my eyes.
Pleasure of the board.
I make a motion that we discuss this again at our October 7th meeting.
Okay, we have a motion.
Well, I can second that. He's just asking for a discussion.
Okay,
I'll
our
second
October 7th meeting is going to be about 20 minutes long.
Okay, he's only
Right.
asking for us to discuss it. If we don't, it doesn't have to be. I'll
It
get
won't
there
be a
early.
long discussion, I can tell you that, because we won't have time. We
Glad
have
to
a town
see if
meeting.
your
left.
mind's open to this.
He's
Are
simply.
you seriously saying you're not willing to have a discussion?
I'm willing to have a
While we're
discussion, but this is
discussing
a
motion.
complex issue. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Jean, you're going to work on coordinating all this?
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Do
Gene.
you think
Thank
you'll
you,
have
Chief.
something for the 7th?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. The wrong town manager's report? Who did?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with those, it showed everything was loaded in.
If you go on their
Town
website,
manager.
you can find it.
As of the meeting, like 4 out of, the town manager's report's not on the correspondence is.
Guess we can cut some of that money out of the budget pretty quick.
Sorry?
Nothing.
He says we're going to cut some money out of the budget.
Mr. Town Manager, do you have a report?
I do, and just a couple items. I did receive from our town clerk a notification of the reimbursement we're going to receive from last spring's election and special Senate election, and we're going to get $17,778 in reimbursement from that election. So that's good news. That'll go into next year's free cash. And also I have received a communication from the Gaming Commission notifying us that we will be informed and receive future communications regarding the Raina Park slots parlor application. That application is due, I believe, this Thursday or Friday, I guess. And they did not name Middleborough as a surrounding community, and I suggest that we petition the commission to be included as a surrounding community, and there's the process for that. I think we have to act within a couple of days of that application being received, which we will do. So those are those 2 items, and then also just included a communication from Mass DOT letting us know that they accepted our project need form on the Everett Square project. As you know, we're pursuing both MassWorks funding and TIP funding for that project, and this is the TIP funding process beginning. So this is the first step in that process. So.
And that is at 25%.
We have to get it to, yeah, we're getting it to 25%, and you need to get it to 25% in order to get on the TIP. Yeah.
Good.
And that's all I have.
The funding that we do, reimbursement for the election, does that cover the cost of the election?
I don't think it covers the entire cost. Let us see what that communication says. Yeah, it doesn't say. I'll check it.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
All right.
Knowing our town clerk, she'll text somebody and let us know before the meeting's
30
over.
seconds, we'll know. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's all.
That's it? questions of the town manager? Okay, on to correspondence.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Knowlton.
could we go back to new business to look at our goals?
Oh, yes, we have goals.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So, here are your goals that you brainstormed at a previous meeting. And what we normally do is, the process we've used has been, each selectman would get 3 votes. They'd get to vote 3 times. Their highest priority would get 3 points, their middle priority 2 points, and their lower priority 1 point. And then we'd use those numbers to tally up and identify which goals have the most support and which ones we should primarily focus on. So does that sound reasonable to you?
Good.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Knowlton.
I actually would like to change that process. I see a number of things listed up there. Some of them are goals, some of them are priorities. I would like us to be setting goals that we can set benchmarks for and show progress over the course of a year. And I think that can be done if we revisit this list. I think some of these things can be combined. But I don't want to see us just come up with a list of things, yeah, this is important to us, and then in a year come back and say, okay, what did we do on these? I would like to see some action steps. I'd like to see some benchmarks. I might suggest all of us take this list and think about what kind of benchmarks for each one of these things would look like, and then come back with a list that's a little more detailed. This just seems very vague to me.
Well, one of the things we could do is we could start by combining. You know, that certainly is one of the things I had mentioned at the initial meeting, but we just started by brainstorming. So however you want to do it, it's fine by me. I mean, if you see things that you want to combine, I mean, I certainly support coming up with benchmarks and establishing short-term and long-term priorities. If you think there are things that should just come off the list and be in a different category, that's fine too. But I think by identifying the highest priorities first, then you can go on from there and set long and short-term benchmarks within those.
I like the idea of combining at least a couple.
So why don't we start tonight by just combining some of them, and then see what they look like from there and see where we want to go. So,
can I suggest a combination?
Sure.
The tourism map and attracting businesses. I think that can be a general category of being business friendly. It's up toward the top, 5th one, I think. 6th one, yeah, that one. Attracting businesses, and then the tourism map is toward the bottom.
Just make that an A.
I think you might also combine some of the financial implication ones, such as the financial liability regionalization and the bond issue for road improvements and assessment of ongoing operating costs. Although I don't know if bond goes
That's
with that.
pretty big. That's a pretty big nut.
I mean, we would give it to him.
Give them all to him. Nice idea.
The Rotary improvements and the reach out to region for Rotary are pretty much, they could be
Yeah,
combined.
that's a pretty easy
They would
combo.
easily combine.
And I'm fine with scratching increased bike paths right off there, because upon further consideration, I think that's for another department and not for this board.
Oh, for scratching stuff off.
No.
Only your own.
Surrounding community status, we're going to petition for that, so.
That's true, too.
Yeah, I think that's going to be done by the time we get to the next step here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no harm in doing that, And I think what we're seeing with these applications, and I've read about it in other places, is they're being drawn very narrowly, and they're putting it on, the onus on the communities to petition, so we just petition.
You know, the Nemasket flooding is something that's, it's an issue that's much more broad than just us, so that, I mean, you know, what
To
can
be
we
honest,
really do about it?
it's not really the Board of Selectmen's purview.
No.
We need
really
to-
can't do much about the Nemasket flooding.
The assess impacts of new proposed development kind of goes with the financial ones as well.
I wouldn't cram too much into that at once.
Well, I'm not saying there can't be multiple goals, but if we're going with categories. I'd also like to see collaboration among departments and more communication between the board and committees be combined.
Jeff Glass. I think the green and the trash go together. Green energy and trash and recycling.
Yes, absolutely. Operating costs and collaboration among departments.
No, I'd like to keep operating costs as a separate category.
How about green energy and the grants? Collaborate with other towns for grants.
Yeah, I mean, green energy is only one subset of that, I think, though.
Our bio-ready status with business, with attracting business.
That, I think, works. So why don't we put that in with A? Is that A?
Yep.
I think that's good.
It's a good start.
All right, so let's then, you know, do another version of this and come back and see where we go from there. Okay, always useful.
Are the ones you combined easily to main priorities?
I think we have to see them again. You know, we should see them all together. I mean, but again, it'll be up to people here to decide what their main priorities are.
And it's not to say that there won't be, you know, a couple of selectmen working on the same priority, so. you know. Good. All right. Okay. Correspondence? Mr. Frawley, you want to start?
Sure. I'm glad to see number one from Mr. Cook. I'm glad to see that we seem to have a resolution to that.
I thought the property owner was very attentive to his concern. As soon as he became aware of it, he took immediate action.
Yep. I'm sure if it doesn't work out,
we'll hear about it.
Yep, we'll know. The Gaming Commission slot application deadline, number 2. I heard some rumblings that application was going to be extended. I think today was today at 5 o'clock was the deadline for applications for Region C, and to the best of my knowledge, KG Urban in New Bedford did submit a check. I haven't heard if Claremont and Bridgewater submitted a check. They threw out some taglines that they were in talks with people, but I didn't hear anything about them submitting a check, so I'm confident at least one developer has submitted an application for Region C, possibly 2. Number 5. The risk assessment for the Cape Fire. We got it, and I think they have 2 weeks left. So, but I don't understand what the big deal was. Like, I don't see why they couldn't have given us this. Why did they have to make this an issue?
It was finished August 30th, so. Had to go through the review process and come to us, because after all, it said virtually nothing in here.
Except
All right.
that we were responsible from now on for certain things, which,
Each grade crossing was observed and analyzed separately. There were no major issues discovered at any grade crossing. Observations and recommendations for each crossing are noted below. If there's no hazards, I guess you got nothing to worry about except for the gate falling on you or something, but other than that, it's no big problem.
Yeah, so, well, when did, we said, they said we were gonna get it before the first train ran?
Yeah.
First train ran on May 24th.
But they didn't say which year of the first train running, see.
But the good news is we got it.
We got it.
We did get it, and since they extended the schedule without telling us, we got it while the train was still running, too.
See? And it's a huge, what?
One-page document.
3-page. No, it's 3 pages. 3 pages.
Yep.
So I've never seen a study, our bridge studies, when they check a bridge, usually about 60 pages.
These are at grade crossings. No bridges.
Grade crossing, no bridges, okay, got it. I missed
So
it.
that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Frawley. Mr. Knowlton?
I too was very happy to see, number one, that Star Mills is taking their job very seriously as tenants, and that was good, and thank you for forwarding those letters, Charlie. Number 7, the Middleborough Area Assistance Coalition is holding a Get Ready for Winter, I guess, workshop, Monday, November 4th, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the evening at the Middleborough Public Library, a program to inform the community of the available resources, discounts, and information to prepare for winter. The Middleborough Gas and Electric will be there talking about discounts and weatherization. The Office for Economic and Community Development will talk about grant programs, furnace repair, accessibility grants, Salvation Army Good Neighbor, Energy Fund with heating assistance, South Shore Community Action Council with fuel assistance information, weatherization, and discounts, Middleborough Fire Department about space heaters and carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, emergency preparedness, Middleborough Veterans Agent Paul Proventia will be there with programs for veterans and families, and there'll be additional resources there. And while we're on that topic too, you know, I'm hoping people are registering their phones to get the updates as we start to move into fall. You know, winter's going to be here. So register your phone with the town, get those critical updates. So when your power goes out, you'll have some information.
That would be the Code Red update, you.
Code Red, yes. And that would be it, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask Charlie a quick question
Yes, sir.
on that? Do you know if the water department has started doing
Flushing?
well, I've heard that they're doing flushing, but I was wondering if they notified any of their customers through the reverse 911 system about the flushing?
No, you know, we've taken the approach of a reverse 911 system of reserving it for only emergency communication, not routine communication, on the theory that we don't want people to turn us off when we need to communicate with them. So we're you know, really going to hold back and just use it for emergencies.
Could we, at one point, talk about maybe a more effective way of getting information out about when we're flushing the hydrants? I've heard a lot of surprise
about
that
yeah.
people, and I understand that it's on the local cable channels and it's in the newspaper.
Yeah.
But some people don't
Yeah, well,
subscribe to those.
yeah.
It's amazing. They don't watch these meetings, but they know exactly who to get in touch with when there's when something comes up.
We'll have to think about, you know, what more we can do to reach
Even
out to
if
people
it's-
and let them know, because it is, you know,
If it's an email, something like that. I mean,
yeah.
I signed up with the Code Red. I
Right.
put my email down as well. Selectmen for all you get.
Well, that's good.
That's okay.
Is that it?
Okay, really quickly, you'll be glad to hear. I agree with about the Star Mill, very happy with the way they handled it. Just one thing on this Mass DOT that just kind of jumped out at me. They said that they had installed advanced warning signs and street markings, and that the future upkeep and replacement of these devices are our responsibility. Just wanted to point that out. Is that...
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
Well, I mean, it's putting a lot in our, because they feel that they've met and exceeded all the federal regulations. so.
Have they replaced any of the gate crossings? Or any of the mechanisms? for
Some of the
gate crossings?
mechanisms, they were working on them, so now if anything happens to them, does that fall in?
No, I think they're talking mostly about the signs and the pavement markings.
So we can go out there and do what we want?
Well,
within reason.
Oh, come on, all right.
I think they should add an advanced warning sign at Spruce Street. I think
Yeah.
coming around that corner, you don't know it's there. There should be a sign before the corner going south.
I agree too. Okay, that's all I have. Everybody's covered.
That's it.
Other things, yeah.
Mr. Quelp?
Well, kind of, I really do share the concerns of Mr. Cook with this noise complaint. I had no idea you could actually have trash picked up at 4:50 a.m. in the morning. How it seemed like a good idea for anybody to be slamming trash cans around in that time in the morning, and have it not result in some upset people is beyond me. So I just think there was just a lack of common sense in the company that empties the trash for Star Mill. I certainly share his concern. The Mass DOT Cape Flyer risk assessment, this almost, led to increasing my aggravation more than anything. They made a big point about trespassers on the railroad tracks. Well, when you don't run the train through here in nearly 2 decades, and the town's had massive growth, and you have young people that have been running their ATVs and dirt bikes along these tracks, that would just lead, that further indicates that you need to do a much better job before you suddenly start blasting a train through a town at 50 miles an hour. Okay? It's understandable that people have been walking around these tracks and going fishing or dirt biking. I mean, yes, it may be illegal, but they haven't had any reason not to for decades. And for you to suddenly just, pop it on us that this train's going to become raring through here, and then at the same time refuse to slow that train down when you've been asked to. It seems like they concentrated more on that as a risk assessment, that, geez, a lot of people around these train tracks. Great, slow it down. They wouldn't do it. So, it really didn't address the more specific things that we were talking about, which were malfunctioning crossings. It seemed to be more the correspondence we got from our citizens was that, there were safety aspects put in place at the crossings that weren't properly functioning, and it just really didn't address that. They said they took a look at them. Well, you can look all you want, but when you're not here, the thing's going down when there's a car not coming, and it goes up when it shouldn't, and it's going off at weird hours in the morning. I just don't understand why they couldn't have addressed that a little better. But hopefully next year they do a lot better job, especially at the community awareness before the thing comes through at those kinds of speeds. Charlie, just real quick, touch on this county bill here. So the assessment came through at $1.3 million for the county, and we're going to be on the hook for almost $48,000.
Correct.
Okay. And so the assessment that comes down to the towns would then run through the county onto the towns. I mean, they buy property value assessment. Is that right? Or is
No, it comes in on the cherry sheet.
So it's on the cherry sheet? Yeah. Okay. So they just divided it up, basically. So it just basically filtered through the county right down to the town from the state?
Yeah, it goes from the county to the state and then to us.
Back down to us, okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, in reflection back on our Board of Health hearing, I realized that I had made a procedural error. Failed to close the hearing before we had the vote.
We get to do all that again?
No, we're not going to do all that again. What we are going to do...
Are you going to continue the hearing until, since we're going to discuss it on October 7th, why don't we just continue the hearing to October 7th?
Okay, would entertain a motion to continue the hearing to October 7th.
So
What time-
moved.
I think we're posted at 6:30, Jackie?
Yes, you are.
Yeah,
6:31
October 7th.
on October 7th. Okay. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Any other business? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it.